FM and streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. So you now have two county legislators in Jackson County who are saying, Mr. Attorney General, Andrew Bailey, please get involved and please help us figure out what to do with the county executive who basically is derelict of duty. And he is. Nobody knows where the county executive is most of the time. Let me repeat that. The guy that you pay as a Jackson County resident, the person who is clearing six figures easy in salary and has seen this county turn to complete mush over the last few years. When it comes to these teams, no one knows what the future is for the Chiefs and the Royals. We hope they'll stay here in Jackson County, but no one really knows. You've got obviously a property tax debacle of all debacles that has people being forced out of their homes. And Frank White is not even showing up to meetings. Not only is he obviously telling the Missouri State Tax Commission to pound sand, not only is he telling his own legislature to pound sand, he's telling the residents to pound sand, and he doesn't even show face. He is completely MIA. So now, this was led by Manny Abarca, who is the definition of a broken clock. He's right twice a day, wrong the other 23 hours and 58 minutes. And then Sean Smith, who both talked to Channel 9 and the rest of the media yesterday, KMBC, and you'll hear Barca's voice first and then Sean Smith on Frank White.
It is time to do more than just complain and yell and scream legislatively. I think that's why now we're calling in the Attorney General to come in and launch a formal investigation.
And instead, he's coaching the Monarchs at least some of his time, and we just don't know his whereabouts. When you can ask week after week to his chief of staff, where is the county executive? And the answer is he doesn't know. His chief of staff doesn't know where Frank is. That's a problem.
I'm glad that Sean Smith is using my Monarchs line, by the way. You appreciate that, Mark? I think that's I'll give it to him, please. Anyone can use it.
Yeah, as long as somebody else. I mean, you were the first one on it, I think.
I think so. I mean, we've been monitoring the Monarchs schedule on a week-by-week basis to try to figure out where Frank is at. Who are they playing? The South Dakota Pighounds or something like that?
Jackrabbits, maybe.
Yeah, might be the Jackrabbits. I don't know.
That's the college team. Never
mind. Well, just start making up animals and names, and you're probably going to be right when it comes to independent baseball. But anyway, there has to be, and maybe we can make up like a "Where's Frank" game, because nobody seems to know where the county executive is. He doesn't show up to meetings. I mean, imagine, use any level of government. Imagine if Mayor Lucas just wasn't showing up to meetings. Like, say what you want about Mayor Lucas, and maybe some of you would prefer he not show up to meetings, but the guy, at least is physically there and, doing his job. I don't think some people understand just how incompetent this county is operating right now. There is no budget. They didn't pass a budget for the year. They're operating without a budget. No one knows where the county executive is. The two professional sports teams in this town are struggling to get a meeting. They don't know what's up and what's down. It is an absolute utter mess. So now they're saying, okay, we need to get the Attorney General involved, Andrew Bailey. And that's what they have requested. They want him to review some of the county executive's recent decisions, including a failure to devote himself full-time to the office of county executive, failure to provide required budget information to the legislature, enabling unlawful disbursement of funds in 2025 without an approved budget, and then, of course, his veto last week of the legislature's ordinance that said you have to abide by the Missouri State Tax Commission, which said you've got to roll back the 2023 assessments to a maximum of 15%. And he has basically thumbed his nose in every single one of those instances. So Andrew Bailey was on this show a couple of days ago, and here's what he said about this possibility.
Where every legal option is on the table. The political subdivisions of the state of Missouri have to comply with the laws of the state of Missouri, and that is certainly true in this instance. Look, Kansas City is poised to be an economic hub of this entire region. There's just been this renaissance of economic development downtown. Things are going great, and yet we've got local leaders who want to squander all that. Why? To undermine the rule of law? It makes no sense to me. I am ashamed that local officials are going to be behaving this way, and we're going to hold them responsible.
Well, I will see what happens with Andrew Bailey, the Attorney General. Of course, he's got some beef right now with Mayor Lucas as well, requesting documents under the Sunshine Law, and the mayor is kind of mocking him. At least he was last week in a statement. So there's a lot on the table and a lot on the desk of Attorney General Andrew Bailey. This is just the latest iteration. But here's what also needs to happen. The organizers of the Frank White recall effort, wow, say that one 10 times in a row. The Frank White recall effort, woo, got that one a little tongue twisted. They have nearly 60,000 signatures, and they say that they have now submitted them. So this is going to take a couple of weeks, they say, to make sure they have enough signatures for the recall effort. They need 43,000 valid signatures. County officials say it will take 2 weeks to verify the signatures. And then the legislature would vote to put this on the ballot. And my guess is that they would shoot for an early August election on recalling Frank White, which is just over 3 months away, but feels like a very, very long time away, John.
Well, you want to follow now because the Netflix series tends to, romanticize things.
That's true.
Right now it's happening in real life, real time.
I just hope we get a little cameo in that Netflix series here on KCMO, just like we did with our friends on the other side of the pond ahead of the Chiefs Super Bowl a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
right?
That's right.
Remember that whole deal? All right. Now, speaking of the Chiefs, the NFL draft tonight, the Chiefs have the 31st pick. Second to last pick in the first round of the NFL draft. We're going to talk to Keatsman about this coming up at the bottom of the hour. So Keatsman's going to join me. We'll get the full draft preview. They're up in Green Bay, Lambeau Field, the whole deal. They moved this draft around now. Do you guys have a preferred position? Mark, I know you've done like 73 mock drafts. So you might have a player for me that you like tonight.
Yeah, I've got, Josh Simmons, the offensive tackle from Ohio State.
I've seen his name.
If he falls down, he's been a little bit injured, but he's one guy. If not, there's two guys from Oregon that I really like. Left tackle Josh Connerly Jr.
Okay.
And defensive lineman Derek Harmon.
Oh, okay.
So two Oregon guys.
All right. What about this Mississippi State D tackle I keep seeing as like the Chris Jones heir apparent? You like him or not as much?
Yeah, he'd be all right. I'm wondering if he'll fall to us, though. That's
Gotcha. Okay. All right. John, what do you like tonight,
Hard
big
for
man?
me to go against Mark because it's literally he got an A+ on a draft he had submitted on every round, 1 through 7.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so including Josh, his pick. My problem is I want the first-round player to be playing and contribute this year. And unfortunately, that doesn't fit the profile of the guy Mark picked, but it's hard for me to go against Mark. I'm torn.
So we're all going with Mark's pick. Josh Simmons,
Maybe
offensive tackle, Ohio
Maybe
State.
So, if he's available.
All right, Mark.
Possibility.
Don't let us down, okay? I hope that Brett Veach is listening and streaming from Green Bay this morning. You know that Veach has the KCMO Talk Radio app. I know he does.
No shortage of help, I'm sure.
I asked if I could join him in the draft room, but he never responded back.
What'd you DM him?
I just put it out there. I don't think he has a Twitter. He probably has a few burners out there. But.
I guarantee you Veach has a couple burners out there. Come on, all these guys have burners. Not like Kevin Durant, who's got like 7 burners to, talk about how great he is. Veach doesn't need that. We all know how good he is at his job. But either way. All right, so Mark got rejected by Brett Veach to be in the draft room tonight. That's okay, Mark. Maybe next year, buddy. We'll look out for you. I'll make a pitch, okay? All right, coming up on KCMO Talk Radio, Keatsman will be here bottom of the hour. We got an arrest of the ATV driver who ran over a Kansas City police officer. We'll tell you who that individual is, and then also an unfortunate ranking that came out for Kansas City as we kick it off on a Thursday morning on 95.7 FM KCMO and streaming on that KCMO Talk Radio app. What up, Beach?
On Thursday's Guy Benson Show, a heck of a lineup. The Architect, Karl Rove with political analysis. Charlie Gasparino joins us on the latest market gyrations coming up at 2 o'clock on KCMO.
Guy Benson, 2 o'clock on KCMO. Get those tickets right now. All right, we got, they're selling fast for his event in Kansas City on June 12th. Tickets are available now at KCMOTalkRadio.com. Dinner, drinks, meet and greet, photo op, all at Boulevard. We are going to have a great time. So the thug and the punk who drove his ATV over a Kansas City, Missouri cop last weekend has been caught and has been charged. Kendall Coleman charged with first-degree assault, armed criminal action, and aggravated fleeing a stop, according to Jackson County Prosecutor Melissa Johnson yesterday. This is, this is actually 2 weeks old. Excuse me. It's from the 12th of April, when at about 7 p.m., right at Truman Road and Main Street, Kansas City police were conducting a traffic stop. And during the stop, an officer attempted to stop an ATV driver, later identified as Coleman, and take him into custody. What Coleman then did, and the video's out there on social media, reversed the ATV, caused the officer to fall to the ground, and while the officer was crouched down, Coleman lifted his ATV into a wheelie and dropped the front of the wheels onto the officer and ran over him before fleeing the scene. The officer was brought to the hospital. He was in critical condition, but he has since been released from the hospital, thank goodness. But this is the kind of stuff that you've got to make an example out of this guy. If you are Melissa Johnson and you're heading towards a summer where these dirt bikes and these ATVs are, for whatever reason, wildly popular right now, people are trying to go viral on social media, and they're doing it in high traffic areas like right there at Truman and Main Street, you make an example out of this POS. That's what you do. And you throw everything you can at this guy. Because guess what? He also had, I know this is going to shock you, he actually had a criminal background.
Talk about a bombshell.
Who would have guessed a guy who has the audacity to run over a cop with his ATV isn't a good dude and has done some stuff before? So court records show that Coleman pleaded guilty in 2019 to 2 felony counts of delivery of a controlled substance and 1 felony count of unlawful use of a weapon after a 2017 arrest by Independence Police. He was sentenced to 4 years in prison, but the sentence was suspended in favor of 3 years of supervised probation. Another problem that we've got here in the Kansas City area and just in our legal system at large. The guy was sentenced to 4 years in prison, and then it's suspended in favor of 3 years of supervised probation. That stuff happens every single day, and it's one of the major problems we have in this legal system right now. So this thug was caught. Thank goodness for that. And now it's up to the new prosecutor, Melissa Johnson, to not treat him with kid gloves and to send a message not just to individuals who are going to be downtown potentially doing this stuff when they shouldn't be, but also to the general public, that we're taking this seriously. And as cliche as it is, there's a new sheriff in town. Because this will be getting a lot of attention today as well. U.S. News and World Report rates Kansas City as one of the country's most dangerous places. The U.S. News and World Report ranked Kansas City as number 8 on its 25 most dangerous places in the U.S. in 2024 and 2025. Not a good look at all, John.
I was going to let the cat out of the bag, though, because I reviewed the story, and I thought if I said the most dangerous cities in Missouri are St. Louis, Kansas City, and Springfield, we'd all agree. But when I would say they're all in the top 25 in the nation, you would drop your teeth.
I know. They're all right there in the top 25. St. Louis is 2, and Springfield is 14. It's obviously it's on a per capita basis.
Sure would like that to be some kind of sports rank.
No,
that's not what it's for. This is negative.
This is not a good look for the state of Missouri, and certainly not for Kansas City either. Now, interestingly, this comes out yesterday, and Quinton Lucas did have a post up on his social media talking about how they are seeing actually a decrease somewhat in violent crime. As of Sunday, Kansas City is at 43 homicides year to date. That means January 1 through Sunday of this week. The 4-year average through this past week is 46. That is a slight decrease. 83 non-fatal shootings as of Sunday. The 4-year average is 148. That is a 56% decrease in this category. That's obviously good because last year what we had was a decrease in homicides, but the non-fatal shootings were actually up. So it's like the criminals just needed to get their glasses checked. But this year, the homicides are down slightly and the non-fatal shootings are down a lot. So that's actually a good sign. If you get the non-fatal shootings down, that naturally is going to lead to less homicides. It means more people or less people are firing off their weapons at other people. So that is obviously, I think, actually a first step to really seeing a decrease in the homicides, which is a step in the right direction. But you don't want to have 3 of your cities on the top 15 most violent cities in America. And we haven't even scratched the surface, obviously, of still the property crime issue that is rampant. And that is really the issue that is more prevalent for a lot of people in Kansas City who, let's be honest, are not living in neighborhoods where homicides are likely, but they are dealing with car break-ins, right? Waldo and Brookside, and God forbid those turn deadly, like Chef Sean Brady last September. So you do have cases where maybe people in Kansas City aren't dealing with the homicide issue ad nauseum, but still, they're dealing with break-ins and property crimes, and those can turn violent very quickly. Like this past weekend, when some, punks were out there trying to steal vehicles in Waldo, and you had neighbors end up with bullet holes in the side of their homes. Like that is happening. And that obviously remains, I don't want to say just as big of an issue as the homicide deal, but it impacts a wider swath of people and a much different demographic of people as well. And that can't be overlooked in this story either. But not a good look for Missouri's 3 major cities to be in the top 15 most dangerous places, because that impacts everything economically. That impacts how people perceive the cities, where they're going to move, where their businesses are going to shift to. That matters just as much as anything else as well. Pete Mundo on KCMO. Kevin Keatsman will join me. Get an early look at the draft from him next.
Definitely in the car. In the car. And my phone, anywhere.
KCMO Talk Radio. Now on FM at 95.7. Kansas City's place to talk. Stream Mundo in the morning on the KCMO Talk Radio app.
It is NFL Draft Day, of course. Chiefs will be on the clock tonight in Green Bay. Of course, they're moving around this deal, so they're up there for the draft this week. Kevin Keatsman, you hear him at 10 o'clock every morning here on KCMO with Kevin Keatsman Uncanceled. His podcast, obviously, will have a very heavy NFL draft theme today. That is Kevin Keatsman Has Issues. Find it wherever you get your podcasts. Well, Kevin, it's another year where the Chiefs obviously are not picking till late in the first round. So for those who are just catching up today, kind of like a crash course for the Chiefs in the draft, what are the needs they're looking at right now?
I think they're looking at defensive line first and foremost, but certainly offensive line as well. I think they like their skill position players across the board. When you have your coach and quarterback like the Chiefs do, the draft becomes easier. There was a report out this week from The Athletic. They ranked 1 through 32, the best draft teams of the last 5 years, and the Chiefs are number 2 in the league at this.
Is that right?
And they've been drafting at the back of the draft. So the only team that's been better is the Lions, which probably would surprise some people. But the Chiefs are the second best drafting team in 5 years. They cited Creed Humphreys as one of the all-time great selections in NFL history because I don't know where he was taken, 60-something. Was he a second-round pick?
Yeah, second or third.
They're like, wait a second, you got the best guy in football in the second or third round. Their worst pick over the last 5 years, they said, was Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
I was going to wonder if it was him.
Right. But he's still in the league. He's playing for the Saints. So he had some problems off the field. He had PTSD and some things he'd been through. It wasn't that he wasn't a talented guy or whatever, but they've just been great at this. Now, maybe you're great at it because you're winning games. They've been to all those Super Bowls, so you have to grade these young players that always play. They have to have cheap players. The Chiefs cannot afford to miss in the draft because if they get bad players, these guys have to play. The Chiefs are the only teams like we draft these guys. They have to play cheap players because they're paying a handful of guys so much money. That's why it's so important for them.
So I've seen offensive tackle. You mentioned some guy from Ohio State. I've seen get attention. A defensive tackle from Mississippi State. Is there like someone at the top of Kevin Keatsman's wish list coming tonight?
No. In fact, I'm terrible. I used to go and prepare for all these drafts and know all these players and everything else. And then, first of all, if you study 20 guys, it's only going to be one.
Yeah.
I feel like I've wasted a lot of time doing that.
That's a good
right?
point.
The other thing is anything the Chiefs let people know, what they let out, what they lead people on, all these stories you read, oh, the Chiefs are leaning, they like this guy. They had a really good interview with this guy at the Combine. They were impressed with this. They're lying. Okay, the Chiefs are lying. They do it on purpose. It's not really lying. Like your mom says you can't lie to people. That's different than sports. Sports, it's never lying. You don't want the other teams to know what you're doing.
Yeah.
You don't want the media to know what you're doing. Did anybody know they were drafting Patrick Mahomes? No. What about when they got the kid from K-State, Felix Anudike-Uzomah? Nobody had a clue they were looking at him. They were pushing in every other direction. So, no, it's a total waste of time to think you know what the Chiefs are going to do. I do believe they would like to trade up. They've said, and I believe this, that maybe they have 18 to 20 players they believe are first-round quality draft choices, and then the next 10 or 12 are just chicken scratch. So I do think they'd like to trade up, but whether they can do that or not, who knows?
So for those that don't know, tonight, the NFL draft is just the first round, then what, second and third tomorrow,
Right, yeah.
And then, of course, 4 through 7 on Saturday. So do they have the draft capital to move up tonight in the first round? Because that can be pretty costly, right?
They do. They got an extra pick for the trade that they made with Tennessee for L'Jarius Sneed. So they got an extra pick in there. They've got 8 picks, so they've got enough. You know, I mean, 6 players maybe is enough for the Chiefs if they're the right 6. So, yeah, there's always – and they can always trade a pick from next year.
Yeah.
Teams love that as well. Chiefs can always move up, but it's got to be their guy. My guess would be if the Chiefs move up, they covet an offensive tackle that's really good.
Okay.
And they're like, wait a second, this guy fell to 18, we got to get him. They know who they can get at 31 for an offensive tackle. If they think that other guy is way better and they can trade up 10 spots or 11 spots because he's fallen in the draft, they may do that.
All right, now we're talking about Lambeau Field tonight. That's where the NFL draft is going to be, home of the Packers. We were here in Kansas City a couple of years ago when the draft was here. You like this, what the NFL is doing, or would you go back to the old days of Radio City Music Hall, New York City, the whole deal?
It's great. I wrote in a newsletter about the draft over the weekend for the patrons of my podcast. It started in 1936. A guy named, I think, Berwanger was the first player ever drafted. He never played a snap of pro football.
Is that right?
Yeah. No, it goes way back, and they never envisioned it would be something like this. The NFL sells this off to cities like we did here in Kansas City with FIFA. The teams are involved, obviously, but they make money back. It's cool that there's no admission. You don't have to pay for a ticket. That's awesome. The cities love hosting it. I think it's a great idea they move this thing around. Now, Lambeau's got a giant atrium. They're going to have a theater where they actually do the draft. I haven't seen how that looks, but it's reasonable to believe it's going to be kind of cold outside Lambeau and the fan experience and all that. I think it's great that they do this. It's
so they're not going to be in the stadium.
They're using the stadium.
Okay.
I'm not sure where the fan fest will be. It could literally be set up on the field. I don't know, or the surrounding area. There's what they're calling the draft theater is where the draft will take place, and that will be heated. There's no question.
Okay.
And I don't know how many it holds, maybe 5,000 people. They're building some sort of a theater. There's a huge atrium at Lambeau, and that could be where their theater is. They may open it with tents and do some other things like that. I'm not really sure how they're doing. And maybe they get a great day. I don't know, but they definitely had to prepare for cold.
I love what they're doing. I guess it was Vegas a couple of years ago, Kansas City, Lambeau. I don't know where it's going, but to your point, good local economic, growth for some of these cities. Now, what it costs them remains to be seen, but I see no downside.
No, there's no downside. What's cool is it's in Green Bay, not Milwaukee.
Yeah.
Like they could have gone to Milwaukee at all the facilities they needed. They're like, no, Lambeau's the show. Lambeau Field is the show. So I think that's really cool. And I like draft stories.
Yep.
Like you've heard of this player. Many of our listeners maybe have heard of a player named Travis Hunter. He's from Colorado. He plays receiver and corner.
Yep.
He's already stated, I'm not going to play for any team that doesn't let me play both sides of the ball. Well, you wonder why he's a diva? His dad is attending the draft tonight, and he'll be picked very early. He's allowed to go because the judge is allowing him to travel to Green Bay to see it. He's had gun and drug charges and is on home arrest and can't go anywhere. They're letting him fly to Green Bay and stay at the hotel and be in the room when his son is drafted. Then he's got to go back and put his ankle bracelet on and go back to his home where he's confined.
Well, speaking of great stories in Colorado, Deion Sanders' kid is one of the top quarterbacks off the board tonight, Shadur Sanders. You buying the Shadur Sanders story? I mean, big K-State and KU fans will know him from the Big 12, but you think he's going to be anything or no?
I hear a lot of people say he's really accurate with his passes, and I've gone back and watched some video, and he did have some really accurate throws, and maybe he's got that innate talent in him to be a very accurate passer. That's the single most important thing for an NFL quarterback is to be accurate. If he's that, then yes, he can be the real deal. But we saw a report yesterday where some scout or insider who was in the room when they interviewed Shadur Sanders' formal interview about the draft, they said it was the worst interview they'd ever sat in and that he's entitled and we're not touching him. So that kind of adds up. I would think Shadur Sanders would be entitled.
Is there a KU, K-State, Mizzou prospect? I don't see any in the first round that I'm aware of, but is there a can't-miss prospect from one of our local teams?
Absolutely. Missouri Tigers may have a couple. They got a big offensive lineman from Lee Summit that could be drafted very early. Their wide receiver, obviously an absolute stud. The Chiefs would like. A lot of people thought about maybe him dropping to 31. I don't know that he's going to last that long. And then two running backs from the state of Kansas won't go tonight, certainly, but they look like they're going to get drafted. Devin Neal, who was from Lawrence, played for KU, and DJ Giddens, who's from Junction City, that played for K-State. It looks like there'll be two running backs in the NFL. We don't know where they'll go.
DJ Giddens, that could be one of the more underrated picks of the draft. He's a big guy and a solid back. Do you like him?
He is. He didn't. It was funny because, my friend Stan Weber, who's an analyst, says the funny thing about Giddens was he never got caught. He'd break into the open and he would score, and you'd watch him and go, well, he's not very fast, but he didn't get caught. So then you started worrying about the defense, the competition, whatever.
Yeah.
But then he busted out a really fast time at the combine. So I think he's deceptively fast. He doesn't hit the hole. He doesn't see the hole between the tackles like an NFL back needs to. He's a set-up play kind of guy, like a screen pass or out on the edge and gone. Devin Neal's the opposite. He slithers through the line and finds little holes. He's got really great vision. He's probably not as, statistically speaking, as high a rated back as Giddens is. I just think it's crazy. We got two running backs that went to high school in Kansas that could be playing in the NFL. That's unusual.
That is pretty cool stuff. Yeah. Kevin Keatsman Has Issues is the podcast, leaning heavily into that draft. And then, of course, Kevin Keatsman Uncanceled coming up at 10 o'clock later today. It is draft day in Kansas City for the Chiefs on the clock tonight, first round, taking place in Green Bay. We appreciate it, Kevin. Thanks, man.
Thank you, buddy. Always fun.
Always good to have Kevin Keatsman on the show. Draft day, Mark is all in on it. He's done 73 mock drafts. I might be off by one or two there, Mark. I don't want to sell you short, buddy.
Yeah, probably. 73 is good.
73 is a good number? Yeah. Okay. All right. Has your wife...
Right after the Super Bowl ended.
Yeah.
Start right up into them.
No, you were doing mock drafts during halftime of the Super Bowl. Let's be honest with the way that Super Bowl went.
That's true.
All right.
Busted out the mocks right at halftime.
I'm just calling it like I see it, man.
I knew they were going to be picking 31 at that point, so I was like, all right, got to get into this.
Exactly right. Exactly right, my man.
I'm looking forward to the adrenaline rush when I see the highlights of our draft picks. I'm like, oh, this guy's great. I'll be buzzing for a week, and we never hear from him again. Right?
That's always
special teams.
That's always the best, right?
No, it is good, though. It's like, wow, oh, wow.
This guy's a stud.
Yeah.
Offensive tackle. Look at him pancake that defensive end. Oh, that's awesome. All right, coming up, the 6 at 6, top 6 stories in the 6 o'clock hour. You've got to know. Next on 95.7 FM KCMO.
Call Mundo 913-408-7957. Now on 95.7 FM.
650, good morning. So glad you're here on KCMO Talk Radio. It's time to give you the top 6 stories in the 6 o'clock hour. Let's go.
It's time for the 6 at 6 on 95.7 KCMO Talk Radio. Number 1.
We have an arrest in the awful incident from 2 Saturdays ago downtown where an ATV driver plowed over a Kansas City, Missouri police officer, sent him to the hospital, and then found himself driving northbound on I-35 southbound. Thankfully, nobody got hurt. Kendall Coleman, the definition of a soy boy in the dictionary, has been charged with first-degree assault, armed criminal action, and aggravated fleeing a stop, according to Jackson County Prosecutor Melissa Johnson yesterday. So, good job by the office. This came via an anonymous tip. Also, excellent work there by the tipsters. And I hope that Melissa Johnson just throws the book at this punk. Send a message to all the folks who may be downtown this summer, dirt biking, ATVing, which they shouldn't be doing anyway, obviously. And also a message that you come after a Kansas City, Missouri cop like that, you're going to spend a buttload of time in jail. And that's exactly what I want to see happen to, once again, I mean, if you've seen the news stories on this guy, you look up soy boy in the dictionary, and there's a big old picture of this thug, Kendall Coleman. And that's what he is.
Number 2.
Next up, let's go to the Northland, where I hate to have back-to-back bad news stories, but a shooting yesterday afternoon has claimed someone's life, according to police. KCPD stated the officers responded to the 7800 block of Northeast 75th Court in reference to a fatal shooting. At the scene, officers located a male shooting victim in the front yard of a home. KCPD said the victim was taken to the hospital with life-threatening injuries and was declared dead a short time later. Preliminary information indicated the victim had an encounter with one or more suspects. The interaction led to shots being fired and the victim being struck. The victim appears to be a teen, but said an identification has yet to confirm whether he is a juvenile or an adult. And no suspects are in custody at this time. So that obviously also bad news out of the Northland.
Number 3.
Let's go to Johnson County. Well, this is a mistake, huh? Johnson County has residents outraged in a certain part of the community. Why? Well, there was a letter sent out from the Johnson County Clerk's Office to hundreds of residents apologizing for an issue on their property taxes. This is courtesy of Fox 4. During tax roll certification, the county told Fox 4 that the school general fund levy had not been included in statements for properties in the Blue Valley School District. 254 homes in the Blue Valley School District did not include the amount of money that was necessary from their property tax bill for tax years 2023 and 2024. So they sent out this letter, and they said this was omitted in error, and we apologize for the issue. We have completed a thorough review of the process and identified additional opportunities to review and verify data. So what does that mean? Well, you've got residents now owing thousands of dollars for taxes from 2023 and 2024. One resident says that she now owes $2,100 in property taxes that she was not billed for from those 2 years. And the deadline for payment is June 3rd. So she's got 2 months to pay $2,100 to basically fund Blue Valley schools because the county screwed up. So now you've got a couple hundred people in the Blue Valley School District who are just like, hey, you owe us a couple grand, or it could be more, obviously, because we screwed up your property tax billing in 2023 and 2024. What an absolute mess at a time when people are getting just absolutely squeezed on their property taxes all around Kansas City.
Number 4.
So how about a story that's gotten absolutely no attention? And we are going to talk to Prairie Village Councilwoman Lori Sharp coming up at 8 o'clock about this story. Did you know the Prairie Village City Council this week voted to send $22,000 to fund military drones for Ukraine. I am not joking. This is real. The city council in Prairie Village, Kansas, voted to use $22,000 of taxpayer monies to buy drones for Ukraine. This is absolutely insane, and it has gotten no attention. The bleeding heart libs on that city council decided, you know what? We got 22 grand around here, right? Sure, we're going to buy military drones for Ukraine. The backstory on this is insane. You will hear about it at 8 o'clock this morning, 1 hour from now, when Lori Sharp, who is on the Prairie Village City Council, joins me here on KCMO Talk Radio. That is just beyond bizarre. And yes, it really did happen. And I just happened to stumble upon this on Facebook. I started reaching out to people yesterday, and I said, is this real? Did this really happen in Prairie Village? And they're like, oh, yeah. Didn't see anything about it in media. Of course, I mean, the Kansas City Star's not going to knock that. They got their Ukraine flags sandwiched between their El Salvadoran flags, in between their LGBTQIA plus MS-13 flags. I mean, you know, they've got every flag but an American flag, so they're not going to be upset by this at all, John.
When you said they were sandwiched between, I immediately thought of Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, John Candy and Steve Martin. Those aren't pillows.
Oh, that's well
sandwiched
done.
Right in there, right?
Well done. Well done. Nice job.
Number 5.
The NFL draft tonight. Chiefs are on the clock. They are picking 31st out of 32 teams in the NFL draft. The first round is tonight. Tomorrow, you have the second and third rounds, and then Saturday, rounds 4 through 7. It is in Green Bay, of course, home of the Packers, taking place tonight. You're going to have to stay up late if you want to see the Chiefs pick, because they will be the second to last pick of the night because they got to the Super Bowl, and that's how they determine the order. But, of course, they could always trade up. NFL draft tonight in Green Bay. Chiefs picking second to last, 31st overall in the first round.
Number 6.
Well, we had those storms blow through yesterday, and the Royals got postponed. So now for Kansas City, they have a doubleheader today with the Rockies. They have won 2 in a row, and they'll play a doubleheader. 1:10 first pitch with Cole Reagans on the mound, and then after that, a 4:10 first pitch with Michael Lorenzen on the mound. So hopefully they can take 2 games today from the Rockies, who are the worst team in Major League Baseball, before they welcome in the Houston Astros for a 3-game series coming up tomorrow. There is your 6 at 6 on KCMO. Coming up, it is a story that we should all be able to get behind on the federal level, but the media can't help itself. I'll explain next. I'm just stumped on this one, man. I really am. Good morning, 7:05. Great to be here on an NFL Draft Thursday on KCMO Talk Radio. All got our Chiefs gear on this morning. So yesterday, RFK Jr., Health and Human Services, along with Marty Makary of the FDA, roll out their plan to basically get rid of a lot of the food dyes that are in our cereals, in our candies. And this is something that is supposed to and absolutely will be beneficial for everyday Americans who are ingesting so much garbage on a regular basis that we don't even realize. Petroleum-based artificial food dyes is what they're officially called, that are going to be phased out by the end of next year from our nation's food supply. It's part of the MAHA, Make America Healthy Again agenda. It is a fantastic agenda that is not about politics. It's not about left versus right. I mean, it is for some people because their Trump derangement syndrome is just constantly at a 10 out of 10. So anything that comes out of this administration, they can't possibly support. Even just good, solid stuff like this, that is obviously a good attempt to try to improve the health of Americans and, most importantly, our children, who are the targets for a lot of this food. So this comes out yesterday, and to me, it's something that we should all be rallying behind. Dr. Marty Makary is the head of the FDA, and he goes on CNN yesterday. And it starts off as a pleasant conversation, right? Good conversation. Rah, get rid of the food dyes. I mean, let's get our kids focused on being healthy again. You've got a lot of these food dyes that basically trick kids' brains into thinking that they are still hungry when they're not, basically a drug. It's also tied to potentially ADHD issues, which, as we talked about a lot last week in a big piece in the New York Times, you have kids now who are being diagnosed with ADHD and are being prescribed medication for ADHD at 3x the levels of what doctors thought the number would be 30 years ago. We have a problem with obesity in our kids. And it's not just the food dyes are not going to create this panacea of health in young people, but it's definitely a step in the right direction. There's no doubt about it. So Marty Makary goes on CNN yesterday to talk about this and starts off pretty well. And, to me, it was a very apolitical message.
Why are these petroleum-based dyes in our food and in our medication in the first place?
Well, good question, Dana. I don't think we appreciated the potential risks to human health and child health when they were first introduced. Yellow dye number 5, for example, was noted to be a bright, vibrant yellow color as the byproduct of coal tar in the coal ash. And then people decided to put it in fabric, and then they thought, well, we can put it in food. The studies have caught up with the introduction of these petroleum-based chemical food dyes, and the data doesn't look good. Studies have shown an association with ADHD. It also makes ultra-processed food look more attractive for young kids, messing with their minds where they feel full and they want more of the food. And we've got an epidemic of childhood chronic diseases, so we are erring on the safe side and moving to remove these from the U.S. food supply.
Great. Who's going to be against that? Like, unless you work for the big food lobby or you're an executive, at one of these major companies that makes Skittles, M&Ms, Fruit Loops, Lucky Charms, Apple Jacks, Pop-Tarts, unless you're one of the executives there and you're doing this because it gets kids and their parents to buy more of it as basically a drug, why would you be against it? And just because you're basically a legal drug dealer doesn't mean we're going to support you. So Marty Makary lays it out yesterday. But, of course, that can't be it, right? It can't just be like, hey, great, CNN interview, all done. It's not anti-Trump. No. You know as well as I do, there was always going to be something that had to be taking a shot at the administration because, well, it is CNN after all, isn't it?
Fake news.
So here was another part of the interview about a minute later with Dr. Marty Makary with the FDA. He gets asked about how the FDA has been cut and dozed, and how are you going to survive with these cuts? And Marty Makary gives a little fact check to Dana Bash on CNN.
Somebody who was at the FDA, who left before you were confirmed. His name is Jim Jones. He oversaw food and nutrition policy at the FDA, and he said he was resigning because his work was compromised by thoughtless cuts at the FDA. Both he and Dr. Hall, what they're saying, again, is that they're excited about the MAHA movement. They're excited about food safety goals. But is your ability to make meaningful progress stunted because the personnel are no longer in place to accomplish your goals with all of these cuts?
Stop it. Can you really do what you want to do without a bloated bureaucracy behind you? Asks Dana Bash to Marty Makary. Yeah, if only they had that tank Rex Archer, formerly of the Kansas City, Missouri Health Department, in the mix, everything would be fine. Oh, boy.
I love Thanksgiving.
Oh, yeah, if only we had Rex Archer in the mix. Oh, we'd be leading the MAHA movement. Yep, because nothing screams Make America Healthy Again like that load Rex Archer of the KCMO Health Department. You're right there, John.
Well, and our expert who worked there before you got there, Jim Jones, John Johnson, Will Wilson. Hello.
Oh, man. I mean, how many other made-up names can we go for here?
Right.
I mean,
J and J.
Richard Small. I mean, come on.
George Gershwin.
Yeah, seriously.
No, Dana, and I'm glad you asked because all the cuts were limited to communications staff. You would not believe the number.
The communication staff was cut. Oh, all the staff cuts at the FDA. How are you going to go on? Oh, you mean like the assistant to the assistant to the assistant communications director? Yeah, I'm pretty sure we're going to be okay at the FDA, all right?
Of communication staff at the agency, redundancies in IT and in legislative affairs and lobbyists from the FDA to the Hill. There's been a fiefdom culture, and we're now eliminating redundancies and consolidating those services. No cuts were made. There were no layoffs to scientists or food inspectors. And my job as commissioner coming in after those cuts is to make sure that the scientists and inspectors have all the resources they need to do their job well.
No cuts to scientists and food inspectors. The cuts were to redundancies in IT and lobbyists. Oh, please. Cry me a river for lobbyists losing their jobs. Come on. I'm glad that Marty had the data to back himself up there, and he put CNN right back in its place. Redundancies in IT, I'm glad that those jobs are gone. We did not cut scientists, and we did not cut food inspectors at the FDA. Great. That was outstanding. But it's like CNN they just can't help themselves. It's crazy. 913-408-7957 on a Thursday morning. Let's go to Randy. He's on KCMO. Good morning, Randy. Go ahead, buddy.
Hey, I think Dana Bash had a Happy Gilmore moment, and to do with food, this comes out pretty funny because he tells her we're trying to make people happy, and she goes, "We eat pieces of crap like Trump for breakfast," and he's like, "We eat crap? You eat crap for breakfast? Well, that's our problem."
Yeah, I remember that one.
Oh, well done there, Randy.
Classic.
Nice job there, buddy. Excellent work. 913-408-7957. That's our studio line and our text line on KCMO Talk Radio. Pete, the Constipated News Network is just too much for me sometimes. Yeah, I know. That's why you just have to allow us to bring it to you here on KCMO. But hopefully with the improvements in the food that were being served, CNN won't have as much of that constipation that they deal with on a regular basis that causes Wolf Blitzer to consistently look that way when he's staring into the television camera on a daily basis. Mark just did a very good Wolf Blitzer here in the studio. I wish that we could have shared with you on social media.
They used to call me Mark Blitzer with my reporting when he was reporting out on the street back in the day.
Well, that was back when Wolf was actually a credible reporter.
That's true.
That was before CNN went off the deep end. So that's very nice of them to call you that, Mark. Very, very nice. Jeez.
Such a nice man.
7:15. Mayor Lucas is 20 minutes away for his Thursday morning 7:30 slot on KCMO Talk Radio. And next, I have an update on what one local municipality wants to do in response to this viral YMCA story out of North Kansas City, where the allegations are this dude was walking around the women's locker room and exposed himself to a 7-year-old girl. And what did he say when they shrieked?
Quote, honey, I'm a woman.
Yeah, that's what the guy said. So there's a adjacent municipality that is potentially going to make some big news on this front. And I'll tell you what I'm hearing on that next on KCMO. Now, you're thinking about, hey, 7:15 in the morning, you might have just hopped out of the shower. You're streaming us on the Alexa, on the Google, on the KCMO Talk Radio app, and you're like, I got to redo this shower. Got to redo the bathtub. Well, my friends at the Plumbing Pro are not just your everyday plumber here in Kansas City, which they've been doing for 45 years as local operators. They are also your go-to stop for tub and shower replacements. And they are offering up Pete's deal right now. That's $2,000 off and 12 months, same as cash, when you use the Plumbing Pro for that tub and shower replacement. The same folks that you start the process with will be there with you through the entire process. They are the local alternative to the national tub and shower replacement guys that you see on TV all the time. And all you got to do is reach out to Steve and his team. They will take great care of you. Like I said, they've been doing this for half a century in Kansas City. They got a 4.8 rating on Google, hundreds of reviews, 816-763-8200. Ask them for Pete's deal, or just go to theplumbingpro.com. That's theplumbingpro.com.
Hey, it's Kevin Keatsman. Stick around. I'm coming up at 10 o'clock right after Pete Mundo on KCMO 95.7 FM.
Well, this story is not going anywhere, at least not here on KCMO. I'm sure it'll be blacked out in most of local media, although a credit to Fox 4 for leading the way on this story, where, according to allegations, a mother and her 7-year-old daughter were in the YMCA women's locker room in North Kansas City when they bumped into somebody who was in the flesh, everything exposed, as a guy. And that individual then looked at this mother and her daughter and said,
quote, honey, I'm a woman.
Yeah. So this is now being handled by North KC Police. YMCA is investigating. And, of course, the Clay County Prosecutor's Office will be involved as well. So, I mean, I've been hearing a lot about this. There are a lot of people who have reached out and they've said, hey, are you talking about this? It's like, I know that people can't listen 4 hours every day, but trust me, we've spent a lot of time on this story the last couple of days. And it's gotten national attention now, at least on social media. Of course, like, CNN's not covering this. If they're going to cover a story in Kansas City, they're looking for their next Cameron Lamb story. They're not looking for a story of this kind of nature. But I've heard from people that Platte County officials are not happy. I know it's a Clay County story, but Platte County officials are not happy. And they have 2 community centers that are operated by the YMCA. And their policy is that people can use the locker room of their choice. So I know for a fact that now Platte County officials are going to be looking into changing that policy. And as one person told me up in Platte County, you can take that to the bank. So there are conversations that are going to be happening now between Platte County officials and the Kansas City YMCA officials coming up this week. And what are they looking at? Well, right now, up in Platte County, here's the deal. The YMCA gets free rent in 2 of their county-owned facilities. And those can be canceled by Platte County officials with a $10,000 breakup fee. And there's a movement up in Platte County to do that. And their thought is like, why should the YMCA get free rent with a policy like that? Why are we giving preferential treatment to the YMCA when they have policies that would allow somebody and a guy to technically just be in the flesh in the women's locker room? Why is that allowed? And why should the government be subsidizing that kind of a policy? And as one official told me up there, I'm willing to die on this hill. And my guess is that there are other local officials in Platte County who will very much agree with this. So this could now spark a major problem for the YMCA in the Kansas City area. Now, could something similar happen in Clay? Maybe. Will it happen in Jackson County? No. I mean, you've got an issue in Jackson County where no one even knows where the county executive is. So that ain't going to happen. They can't figure out property taxes from 2 years ago. Never mind this problem. And in Johnson County, well, you know as well as I do, not a chance. No way, no how. There's no way anything's going to come out of that when it comes to Johnson County. In fact, in Johnson County, you might have county officials who are like, come on in. We'll give you more free rent for every person that walks into the wrong locker room. They may give you, more subsidies if you do that in Johnson County with some of the people in charge down here. So I'm not sitting here expecting this to happen tomorrow, but just know that, if you're in Platte County, you got some good people in charge up there right now. And make sure that if you want them to pursue this, you tell them. Let's go to Terry. You got a minute, Terry. You're on KCMO. Good morning.
Good morning. I just wanted to let you know that I go to that Platte County YMCA, and they have a sign on the women's locker room that boys over 5 years old must use the men's locker room. So I don't know why men are walking through the women's locker room if they're over 5.
So it says what? Say that again to me. The sign says what?
boys over 5 years old must use the men's locker room.
Okay, that's what I thought you said. Here's the catch, Terry. If you don't consider yourself a boy, well, there's your workaround.
That's very true.
Mm-hmm.
That's very true.
Yeah, and that's the problem.
Yep.
Thank you, Terry. I appreciate you.
You're welcome.
Stay safe up there in the women's locker room in Parkville at the YMCA. Never thought I'd have to say it, but here we are. Talk to the mayor of Kansas City, Quinton Lucas, coming up next. I'll ask him about the chaos in Jackson County and more next.
Definitely in the car. In the car. And my phone, anywhere.
KCMO Talk Radio. Now on FM at 95.7. Kansas City's place to talk. It's Mundo in the Morning. Now on FM at 95.7. Set a preset on your radio. KCMO Talk Radio.
As we do each and every time this week, we set aside this time for the mayor of Kansas City, Quinton Lucas, joining us on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio, and streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. Well, Mr. Mayor, all the conversation, of course, this week, it seems like in this town, is around Frank White, the Jackson County executive, and what his future holds. I'm sure this is one of those stories that you're kind of sick of hearing about, but a lot of people are wondering what is next and what the city's stance is on the future of the Jackson County executive. You're a resident, but you're also the mayor of the largest city in the county. So where should this go from here after two legislators introduced the idea of the attorney general potentially getting involved in Frank White's removal?
Well, I'll say a few things. First of all, it doesn't ever seem like there's a story that we don't get to talk about now that isn't kind of a repeat one, whether it be stadiums, the county property tax issue, or beyond. Let me lay out just a few different things. First of all, I do respect any order that comes both from a court here in Missouri or from the tax commission. I think they have been rather clear and unambiguous about the fact that there are certain instructions to Jackson County about property tax treatment for the prior tax year. I stand with the legislative majority in connection with making sure that gets addressed. In terms of how it is meted out, whether you bring in the attorney general, certainly I never support that. I don't think he actually ever really acts in good faith, but I do think that it's worthwhile for the county executive to work with the county legislature and others to say, all right, how can we get to some good compromise? I think that's a good step that we saw in the past week, that them saying in the next year they will cap to 15% the increases, like you see in almost every other county in our state, including Clay and Platte here closer to home, in which Kansas City sit. I think it is a good thing that they're at least talking about ways they can pass a budget. But, as a fan more of government than a Jackson County resident or a Kansas Cityan, you got to get these things to work. You have got to pass a budget at the county level. You can't have $500-600 million being spent, I think, without it. You have got to get some level of agreement of everybody sitting in a room and saying this is how we can get things done. And that will mean compromise in both ways. I understand litigation as well as almost anybody in one of these positions. It takes forever. Even if you brought in the attorney general tomorrow to wage a bunch of threats and lawfare, it would probably take 1.5 to 2 years to get some resolution. By then, we're in a whole different election cycle, and maybe some of the personnel's even changed. So I hope there's compromise that gets us out of it. When you have elephants fighting, right, then there's what they say, right? We're all just the grass that we all lose. I mean, this is a real concern, and I hope people in cooler heads come to some resolution.
Well, you mentioned, and for people who are listening closely, you probably got the feel from the mayor on his thoughts on the attorney general for the state of Missouri, Andrew Bailey. So he said this week that you have denied or ignored maybe sunshine requests that he say need to be turned around in just a couple of days. He's investigating the office, as he calls it, ties back to defunding the police attempts of 2021. So he seemed to make it very clear that he believes you've got to basically give him what he's looking for. But for those that didn't see your very tongue-in-cheek response last week to this, I guess you're not buying it. So what's next between you and the attorney general?
Well, you know what? First of all, I disagree with some of your premise. The police have never been defunded in Kansas City during my administration. Not only have they been funded their best ever, which you may expect because it has been several years, but frankly, our increases, 10% budget increases, 8% budget increases, far outpace almost every other department in Kansas City. In terms of the back and forth with Andrew Bailey, what I have to say is this, right? He's playing games, right? These aren't realistic questions, as you know, Pete, and maybe the public doesn't. We have been in litigation, both on this issue and others, for years. He has previously requested these bills, these statements before. The Attorney General's office has that information. They've deposed me in connection with that information. What they're really doing is kicking up a bunch of mud just to kind of be in a back and forth political fight. I understand it. I guess he's a politician like our other two attorneys general. I guess he wants, our recent attorneys general, he wants to be a U.S. senator someday and thinks this is the way. But to me, ultimately, this is the sort of thing that says, look, it's just wasting time. He knows how he can get the information. He knows that what he requested likely will require us to pull thousands of documents. I'm hearing more than 7,000 potentially. It takes a lot of time to review. Andrew Bailey knows that, but it was good for a one-day political hit, and I look forward to him tweeting to me about something else that is unnecessary sometime soon.
All right. Well, we'll have to keep an eye on that then. Mayor Lucas is here on KCMO Talk Radio. There was an arrest this week of the man he was charged this week, the guy with the ATV who ran over the Kansas City police officer. We're glad this came. His name is Kendall Coleman, charged with first-degree assault, armed criminal action, aggravated fleeing a stop, according to Jackson County Prosecutor Melissa Johnson. This came down yesterday. So is this a sign ahead of what could be an active summer with all this dirt biking stuff that hopefully there's to use the cliche, new sheriff in town? Is there a larger message here with this arrest that you hope gets out loud and clear?
Yeah, the message needs to be to anybody who is offended in this category. You will be caught, right? You will be arrested. And I appreciate the prosecutor, Melissa Johnson, who I'm very proud of, bringing very real and serious charges. This isn't fun. This isn't stunting. This isn't just some sort of Instagram reel that you get out of it. This is a real harm to people in Kansas City, and we are not tolerating it. You saw a robust investigation from KCPD. This suspect was apprehended several states away. We are proud of the work that was done, and frankly, we will continue to do this work on all of these. These things always occur on video. They're looking to have a show. Well, I tell you what, that show is going to be evidence in trials against people for felonious charges, and I think this is the sort of thing that you're going to see us cracking down on more and more, not just in Kansas City. You saw the St. Louis police. I posted it on social media. They arrested several the other day. Big city departments are saying we've had enough. These street takeovers are not a thing that's going to be tolerated.
Now, speaking of big jobs right now in the city manager position, of course, is open, and there are 3 finalists for this position. Do you have one of these 3 that you prefer, that you are lobbying on behalf of?
I would never have a preferred candidate before interviews, of course, right? I'm going to make sure that we evaluate everybody. I know all of them well. I've worked with all of them. All of them have had relationships with the city that I think extended beyond 20 years, and each of them have some outstanding projects about which they can boast. So, I think this is a very good process. These interviews will be public, so all of you can listen, you can watch. Hopefully they come on your show after they're selected, but more than anything, I hope that people in Kansas City understand. We have an outstanding government. We'll continue to deliver exceptional basic services. Kansas City, I think, has been through a basic services, road resurfacing revolution over recent years. We're paying everybody well, including our cops. We have a wonderfully run city government. There are personnel changes. That happens all the time. But I'm proud to work with the thousands of people in Kansas City, and I think that you'll be proud of our next manager as well.
All right. And then on that note, you look at where this town is headed tonight. It is the NFL draft. And where would you like to see the Chiefs go with that 31st pick in the NFL draft, Mr. Mayor?
The 31st pick, man. Look, we need line help, right? And frankly, I think we could always use a little bit of receiving corps help. O-line, that's the sort of thing that I'm hoping that Brett Beach, my man, is focused on. I have not looked at draft charts. I am no Mel Kiper Jr. I will just sit back happily and then watch Twitter go alight based on all of the different selections that we either make or do not over time.
Well, there you go. Oh, and I got to ask you, too, how about the old Spring campus landing the company from Milwaukee? So Fiserv is certainly a different landing spot than what some on the radio dial were predicting just 3 weeks ago, huh?
My wife tells me I shouldn't get in back and forth fights, but the number of times I have been tempted to just, maybe call in a different radio show, although it probably helped their ratings, or just kind of say, Wow. It was almost a stone cold lock. You remember the assertiveness with which it was declared that this is basically a done deal. That's what all the sources are saying. Anything but. I got to give a shout out to my good friend, Governor Laura Kelly of Kansas, who's going down quickly. He's one of Kansas's best governors. And I think it's a great deal for the people of our region, but it is hilarious how that Sprint campus, I'm just glad we finally get to get that out of our conversation. Now we get to debate everything else with the future of Royals baseball.
Well, there's something we can definitely agree on. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We always appreciate your time.
Hey, have a great day. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Of course, he slips in some love for Laura Kelly right when I got to jump, but we'll save that for another time. There's just too much going on. I can't get to everything every time we have a conversation. We got about 10 minutes. So there's the mayor of Kansas City, Quinton Lucas, on KCMO Talk Radio. And for those of you, I know there's always a couple of people, I don't need any more on the stadiums. No, I didn't touch on them. There's nothing to touch on outside of making fun of Basset Hound Bob down the dial. That's it. That's the only thing I can do this week. Oh. Nice job there, Mark. That's pretty good, man. Well done.
Thank you.
Take a bow. Now tell me who the Chiefs are drafting tonight since the mayor wouldn't.
I think they're going to go, hopefully, like what he said, offensive line. Josh Simmons from Ohio State's one of my top guys. He was injured. He should be a top 10 pick, but his injury might drop him down a little bit. Or Josh Connerly Jr., the left tackle from Oregon.
Okay, those are your two guys to watch out for tonight.
My two big guys.
All right. Would you trade up for either of them?
For the Chiefs, I want them to stay where they're at so they don't have to lose any other draft picks.
All right. Fair enough. I'll give you that, man. Okay, now, coming up, though, did you see what happened in another city with their NFL team and their stadium? I mean, I don't want to keep being right on this stuff, but something happened in another town with another NFL franchise, and who knows how that plays out here for us in Kansas City. We'll explain that coming up on KCMO. And at 8:05, a Prairie Village councilwoman is going to be here to explain why the heck the city funded Ukraine to the tune of $22,000. Like, if you've got that kind of tax money lying around, what are you doing? Give it back to the people. It's unbelievable. Don't miss those stories coming up on 95.7 FM. Now, last month, you may have heard us talk about a really cool program that Centric was doing here in Kansas City. They had a free event inviting business owners to learn about the future of artificial intelligence and how it can help their businesses today. Well, if you couldn't make it, that's okay. There were like 50 business owners there, and maybe you just couldn't make it out to that one. Well, if you're still trying to figure out how AI can help you, let Centric be your one-stop shop and answer all of your questions right now at centric.com/AI. Meet with them. They've been in Kansas City, obviously, for decades. They've been training the technology workforce forever. And now they just want to help you figure out how to incorporate AI to what you're doing every single day. Go to centric.com/AI. That's CENTRIQ.com/AI. And they'll just help you get the ball rolling. It'll be a conversation. They're not going to try to sell you a bunch of stuff that you can't afford. They just want you to know that this is here. It's happening. And by the way, your competitors are using it. So don't get left behind. At centric.com/AI, centric.com/AI. Small, medium-sized business owners need to get ahead of this trend. It is being used all over business, and Centric can help you right now. Centric.com/AI.
If it's happening in KCMO, it's on KCMO 95.7 FM. Here's Pete Mundo.
Last couple of days, stories started brewing that the Bengals may be looking at St. Louis, leaving Cincinnati, going to St. Louis. And it all came from just this ongoing saga in Cincinnati, very similar to here in Kansas City, where the team wants to upgrade their stadium, maybe get a new stadium. The county is like, I don't know. Do we have the money? What do we do? So then this rumor started getting floated out there that, well, the Bengals may go to St. Louis. Oh, my goodness.
If the Bengals or if the St. Louis wanted an NFL team, I don't think they'd go for Cincinnati. I think they'd just try to take the Chiefs across the state, right?
I don't know. They would do, who knows? But it just, the whole thing seemed so absurd. But you're right, Mark. If they really wanted to make a play, I mean, that would be beyond bizarre and it would never happen. But to your point, that would at least make some sense. So, we've got 7 radio stations in the building. And somebody came up to me a couple of days ago and they're like, yeah, you know what's going to happen? Chiefs are going to Kansas and the Bengals are coming to St. Louis. And the Jeff City, St. Louis crowd is going to do whatever it can to bring an NFL team back to St. Louis. They don't care about the Chiefs anymore. They'll let them go to Kansas. I'm like, what are you talking about? And this person, for the record, was a big fan of Biden and predicted Kamala was going to win and Trump had no chance. So I said to this person, I said, boy, I think your stadium predictions are just as good as your political predictions. And let's just put it this way. The conversation ended very quickly after that. Because this person was always like, Trump's got no shot. He could never win. Sweeping 7 swing states later, let's just put it this way. We haven't talked a lot about that subject since. I'll leave it at that. So now we know the whole St. Louis thing was just media leverage from the team because yesterday Hamilton County and the Bengals reached a preliminary agreement on $185 million in improvements to Paycor Stadium for the 2026 season. The vote will come from commissioners officially on April 29th next week, and the agreement would be the first step towards both parties agreeing towards a new lease and up to $830 million in stadium renovations. The first phase would cover upgrades to club lounges, stadium suites, and concessions. The Bengals would pay $120 million for those improvements, with some of the money coming from a loan under the NFL's G5 program. The county would kick in $64 million for fixes to escalators, elevators, the electrical grid, glass refurbishment, and fixes to the stadium scoreboard control room. They've got until June 30th to agree on a new lease or approve the first of 5 2-year extensions. The original lease for the Bengals expires on June 30th of 2026. So, I don't have all the details, obviously. This is over in Cincinnati. But the team kicking in 2-to-1 ratio on dollars is a pretty good start. Now, if it goes to $830 million and the county's kicking in the bulk of that, that's a different conversation. But if the Bengals are putting in $120 up front and the county's kicking in $64 for escalators, elevators, everything else, that's not a bad deal for the taxpayer right now. Now, the devil's always in the details, but you tell me where else you would see a team kick in 2-to-1 on the dollars for stadium upgrades and improvements. You won't see that. I mean, that's very rare to see. So I don't know if this is a start of, a broader conversation where the taxpayer ultimately gets screwed. But if nothing else, what you're seeing is stadiums having a very difficult time getting taxpayer monies in a lot of major American cities. The Bears have had a lot of issues trying to figure out their next move stadium-wise. This issue in Cincinnati has been real until it got figured out here yesterday. We know what's going on here in Kansas City. And there's a populist sentiment on the left and the right now that they don't want to pay for billionaire stadiums. Main Street has been squeezed for a long time, and inflation the last 4 years, courtesy of the former guy, just made it that much worse. Where people are not in a place where they say, sure, just out of principle, give my money to a billionaire sports franchise. That's on both sides of the political aisle. And then, of course, you've also got these municipalities that are realizing, first off, the ROI is not there. When all these governments started getting involved in stadium projects, it really kicked off in the mid-90s. The first one to do it on a major scale was the Texas Rangers in Arlington, then owned by George W. Bush, or run by George W. Bush. And that kickstarted this whole idea of, wow, you mean counties and cities will like kick in money for sports owners to build stadiums under the guise of economic development? Oh, man, this is great. And 30 years later, we're still doing it, but people are starting to wake up. So now the leverage for these teams is going to be, we might go across the state line, and then you get state pride involved. We might leave Cincinnati and go to St. Louis. Oh, boy, you better give us what we want. Like, that's the only leverage now that a lot of these teams have. And they'll use it, right? And when you get the blind leading the blind, or you get some people who are like, yeah, sure, we'll do our job to keep the team in the Kansas City area because they've threatened to go absolutely nowhere, but we got to make sure we're doing our part on the Kansas side of the state line. That's how you get stuff like this. That's how you get teams getting some leverage where they can say, well, we're going to go to Kansas, and then pride gets in the mix. And that's ultimately what these deals end up coming down to. They're not about what's good for the taxpayer. It ends up being about pride. Now, speaking of the taxpayer, why did Prairie Village kick $22,000 to Ukraine? An underreported story we'll tell you about with Lori Sharp next. You know you can't believe everything you see on Facebook. Trust me, I know that as much as anybody. You see things and you're like, wait, this can't be real. And that's true, across the political aisle. I see things from people I agree with, and I'm like, guys, that's not true. It's not true. So when I saw that Prairie Village, as a city council, had donated $22,000 to fund drones in Ukraine, I thought this can't be real. So I reached out to a couple of people, and I got confirmation that, in fact, it is real. So here is Prairie Village City Councilwoman Lori Sharp on KCMO. Lori, this story has gotten basically zero attention in local media, as you would expect. But what happened on Monday night where this council voted to give Ukraine $22,000 of the taxpayer monies?
Well, actually, Pete, it was $22,900.
Oh, okay. I don't want to sell it short. You're right.
And how it all started is a few weeks ago, the mayor of the city in Ukraine reached out to our mayor because we're sister cities. And he requested a phone call with our mayor and a couple council members. And he told about the horrible things, how their city has changed, what's going on. Now, they're not on the front of the fighting at all, but just obviously it's affecting them as a city as being part of Ukraine. And they were requesting monies to buy these military drones. So it came to the council two meetings ago, and we discussed it. And an article from Forbes magazine talked about these specific drones and how they're used in combat and delivering grenades to kill other soldiers and people. And it was very alarming to me and possibly other people on the council that this is what these drones would be used for. So the city administrator and people went back to the mayor, and they promised that they would only use the drones for delivering medicine and humanitarian relief, which still begs the question, is this really a city duty to supply foreign aid to a country? My impression of a sister city is more of a cultural exchange.
What is this? I didn't even know these sister city things existed. How do you end up with a sister city in Ukraine? What is that? How many of these does Prairie Village have?
I believe we only have one. Now, if you look at the sister city that we have in Ukraine, they actually have 5 sister cities besides us. We only have one. Like I said, it's a cultural exchange.
How long has this sister city been with Prairie Village? I mean,
it's been approximately 8 to 10 years. I'm not really sure of the real history because I'm new and I wasn't part of the initial relationship.
You're new. Yep.
But I've heard of sister cities before. Liberal Kansas has one with only England, and they do this pancake race. Or, I imagine it as sending Kansas City barbecue or Chiefs paraphernalia. And sometimes you have people travel to the city to have a cultural and experience and to kind of say, this is what our town is like, and, what is your town is like. But it certainly kind of crosses all lines when you're sending foreign aid to a, country that's in the middle of a war. And no one doubts the bravery or the heroism of the Ukraine people, and their need is immense. But again, for me, a city council should never be discussing a donation for military drones or medicines from taxpayer dollars. The donation should be made from individuals, not elected officials. Millions of Americans donate to Doctors Without Borders or Heart to Heart International, and it's private citizens have done of their own volition, and that's their choice. But they don't want or need local governments making decisions for them. I don't know how many of the council members donated their own money, and that's okay. It's not really my business. We should all get to choose who to donate to and what problems. But I have to say, for me, what it seems to be is it becomes too easy to reach into the city's kitty and to feel good about yourself or what you're doing by using the city's monies to donate for your personal cause.
Well, so how does this Monday night, you as a city council, you vote on this, and obviously it passes. So now you have $22,900 going to this city in Ukraine for military drones. Now, how do you know it's for military drones? Because I heard some mixed news on this from people. Some saying it's not military drones, some saying it's just humanitarian aid, but you're saying it is military drones.
Well, the article that the mayor of Ukraine sent us was very specific about the drones he wanted. He wanted either his first choice was these drones had the number on it, with the code name or whatever, and it was for $5,700 each. And then their second choice were drones that were for $2,300. In this Forbes article, it identified those specific drones. In fact, they've been banned in some countries because people put grenades on them and then they fly them over to the other country and bomb their cities, their hospitals, whatever. And so these drones were specifically identified. Now, in the council meeting, we've talked about them. Inga Selders actually brought up another motion wanting to, make sure that the drones weren't used. But we were told by a couple of the council members that we needed to trust Ukraine and let them decide what to do with the monies. And so that was the vote. Ultimately, was 8-4, was to send this money to the sister city over in another country.
Geez, so the woke warmongers won out with $23,000 in military drones from the taxpayers in Prairie Village to what's the name of this city in Ukraine?
I'm drawing a blank right now.
That's okay. I mean, it's all right. I think it was something with a D if I saw that right on social media. So with that being said now, how do you sell this, no pun intended, to the taxpayer who has seen their property taxes increase tremendously, as most people have in Johnson County across the board, to justify $23,000 of their monies going to fund military drones in Ukraine at a time when people are just trying to, in many cases, make ends meet?
Well, frankly, I'm not trying to sell it. I had an email last night from a citizen saying she was disappointed in me, and I explained to her that I was elected to represent the city and and only look at essential city services, to look out for the welfare of the city and its residents. And I take that very seriously. I actually have a list of residents that I've met over the couple of years that have touched my heart or have written to me about their tax dollars opening up their statement and crying because they think they're going to have to move. And those things mean a lot to me. And I actually have a list of those residents that I keep at my dais when I'm sitting there. And so when I'm making decisions, I always ask myself, is this what's best for them? Is this the best use of their monies? And that's how I make my decisions. And I certainly could not vote or support sending monies for military drones to another country. That's not my job. So I explained that. People can either disagree or agree with me, but that's my focus.
That's wild. Lori Sharp is here, Prairie Village City Councilwoman. Really no media attention on Prairie Village voting on Monday night to send $23,000 to a city in Ukraine for military drones. And what's to say that there's not a future ask, right? I mean, if you're going to fall for 23 grand, is 50 grand coming next month?
Actually, prior to me getting on the council, I was unaware that we gave them $10,000 for walkie-talkies.
Is that right? Was that before the war or during the war?
During the war.
Wow. Well, I guess folks in Prairie Village, what do you got for me in there?
Got an arms race going here.
Yeah, there is an arms race going on. I mean, if I don't laugh, I'm going to go nuts. Because
Come on, Overland Park, you're slacking.
Yeah, I mean, Overland Park's got to step to the plate now, all right?
Somebody,
I mean, this is I can't believe this is real, Lori. I really can't believe that we are having a real conversation about a city of 20,000 people in Johnson County, Kansas, funding a foreign country to the tune of $23,000 for military drones.
Well, and $10,000 for walkie-talkies.
Yes,
but I also have to say, one of the other council members mentioned having a fundraiser, and I actually stepped up and I said that I would host a fundraiser, have it be citizen-led, community-wide, and what a statement to the city of Ukraine that to say that our little community came together privately, because we're a democratic community and we can do that, came together privately to fund because we support you and we want to do this of our own volition. And after I said that, it was just crickets. No one, jumped on that or said, that's a good idea. Instead of giving our city tax dollars for everybody, we could jump and let the people who choose to give offer their money.
Well, if you want an example of local government getting wildly out over its skis, this is a prime example right here. And it doesn't make you, I'm sure that now some people are going to label you like a Russian stooge or something. And that's not what this is about
It isn't
at
what it
all.
is,
It's
no.
what is your job as a city council in Prairie Village when it comes to funding. And you think that potholes and trash removal and snow removal are kind of the basics, but apparently that's not just the name of the game anymore.
That is exactly my thought process when I make decisions is I focus on the citizens. I think about what are city duties, parks, streets, trash pickup, police and safety. Those are the things I'm doing. I'm not trying to be a hero and save the world. I'm just trying to make life a little bit better in Prairie Village.
Well, you're doing all you can. Thank you, Lori Sharp, for being here.
Thank you.
Lori Sharp, Prairie Village City Councilwoman on KCMO Talk Radio, 913-408-7957. I do not often get stunned by our local news cycle, but this is just shocking to me. Coming up, we'll keep it in one of our local counties where residents just got a big bill in the mail because of a screw-up at the government level on property taxes. It's not Jackson County, by the way. It's not. Surprising, I know. You're shocked.
Talk about a bombshell.
We'll tell you who and where next on KCMO.
On Thursday's Guy Benson Show, a heck of a lineup. The architect, Karl Rove, with political analysis. Charlie Gasparino joins us on the latest market gyrations, coming up at 2 o'clock on KCMO.
Don't miss Guy Benson coming to Kansas City June 12th. We'll be at Boulevard. Photo op, show, dinner, drinks, the whole deal. Get your tickets now at KCMOTalkRadio.com. They are selling fast. So the boys on the other side of the glass just shared this with me here. We got done with Lori Sharp of Prairie Village City Council talking about how they just kicked in $23,000 to their sister city in Ukraine for military drones. So back in, and I'll show you, this is not about picking sides in war here. In 2023, Leawood gave its sister city in Israel $25,000. This was November of 23, just a few weeks after the horrific attacks of October 7th. Now, that's also absurd. And I am through and through Team Israel. But that is not the job of our local cities here in Kansas City. Like, we have a federal government that is supporting us overseas or supporting our allies overseas as they see fit based on the people that we elect. Leawood kicking in $25,000. I mean, I'm on Israel's side 7 days a week and twice on Sunday, but we do not need to be spending Leawood city dollars on foreign affairs. That's nuts.
And that $25,000 that Leawood gave was supposed to be on a trip to Israel for whoever Leawood was going to send over, but then they couldn't go because of the COVID stuff.
Yeah, so they figure, hey, why not use it for something in Leawood? We'll just spend it overseas.
Yeah, exactly.
This is absurd. This was
get
from
yourself some ammunition.
Here's a quote to Woke 41. Councilman Andrew Osman says it's something we didn't even think twice about. That's part of what a sister city is, to be there through thick and thin. More like Andrew Assman to me. Yeah, through thick and thin. That's what we do. We fund wars overseas with local city dollars. Right. No, that's not your job. You want to do that? You want to vote on spending money in Israel or Ukraine or anywhere else? Go run for Congress. Hey, geez.
There you go.
Primary Sharice Davids if you're a Democrat.
Plenty of positions available.
Yeah, or you know what? Run against her as an independent or a Republican. If that is something you're passionate about, or join your local church on an overseas mission trip or something. Like, you do not need to be spending or budgeting local dollars from your taxpayers to cities in other parts of the world. That's not your job. What happened to city council members who are just like, you know what, my job is to make sure that some potholes are filled and people get their trash removed. And, on top of that, we do things like remove the snow in a timely manner. Now, people that are city council members in Prairie Village and Leawood are like, yes, I will gladly send my money to foreign countries or send the taxpayer monies to foreign countries. Oh,
got to keep an eye on things. Like, we have 12 sister cities in Kansas City. There's a sign down there on the plaza that lists them. They like to put Seville, Spain at the top since the architecture down there. But we have 2 sister cities in China.
Oh, really?
So let's send them some money, huh? Not.
Boy, don't give them any ideas.
Well, right.
Okay? Jeez.
Well, we should be awake here. Be judicious.
That's right.
We need to fund some lab research, right?
Yeah. Maybe we can kill some bats. Wow. All right, let's go to the Blue Valley School District now, where 254 properties received notification that these homes owe a couple $1,000s in property taxes because there was an error in their property taxes for 2023 and 2024. Basically, they owe backed taxes to the Blue Valley School District. These homeowners did nothing wrong, but they were informed here recently that basically we screwed up in the tax office, so you owe us money. And by the way, your deadline is June 3rd in basically 5 weeks. So one woman talked to Fox 4 and said that she now owes $1,100 in taxes for 23 and more than $1,000 in taxes for 24. And she owes it to the tax collectors in 5 weeks. And this is on top of her $5,300 in annual property taxes that she's currently paying. She says it's going to be a burden for her right now. And this is part of, unfortunately, something that is now, I don't want to say widespread, but you have hundreds of people who have gotten notifications saying, sorry, we screwed up your property taxes from the last couple of years, and we need you to give us thousands of dollars. Even Frank White's like, this is kind of incompetent.
What a scam. It's like, first of all, prove it. And second of all, I do remember from school the null set, and that's what you're getting from me. Zip, zilch, nada, the big goose egg. You screwed it up. It's past the time of collection date. You know, if they owed you money, they try not to pay you, right?
Of course.
Oh, no, you didn't get it in time.
Well, I don't know how this is going to play out. If someone's going to bring a legal case here, it's entirely possible. But I imagine it's going to be very difficult to win. And then it gets to this, though. How much are you willing to pay in attorney fees if on the flip side it's like, well, I'm going to pay the attorney fees to try to save $2,000, but the attorney fees might cost you more than $2,000. So that's where the government's got you bent over on this whole thing. And that's about all they do well. Coming up, we're going to have some fun. The NFL draft is tonight. We're going to draft future GOP leaders and Democratic leaders here on the show next.
KCMO, Kansas City's place to talk. On 95.7 FM and 710 AM. A Cumulus media station.
You wouldn't settle for Bateman when there's Batman?
Solve the riddle and be free.
What is dusk?
You don't have to answer in the form of a question.
Hey, it's Kevin Keatsman. Stick around. I'm coming up at 10 o'clock right after Pete Mundo on KCMO 95.7 FM.
It's 8:34. It is NFL Draft Night in Green Bay tonight. Chiefs will have the 31st pick. Tonight's the first round. Tomorrow is the second and the third round. And then Saturday is rounds 4 through 7. Of course, it was 2 years ago. It was here in Kansas City. It doesn't feel like it was that long ago that I brought the girls down, the World War I and everything else that was going on. But, man, it's cliche, but time does fly. So with that, I figured let's have some fun. All right? Mark, John, and myself will have a little NFL-esque draft where we will do 3 picks for the future face of the Democratic and the Republican parties based on who we think will be maybe the 2028 nominee, the face of the party going forward. So let's do it. Oh, man. Oh, it sounds so good. Dun, 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 dun. All right, here we go, fellas. John's got the first pick. He drew the strong straw, the long straw. I've got the last pick of the draft for each party. So which party do you want to start with there, fellas?
It doesn't matter.
All right. Well, let's start with the Republicans. What do you say? All right. With the first pick, you're going to go first here, John. So is the pick
before
in?
beauty is the established rule of order, so determined before the broadcast.
That's fine.
I
All
will
right.
go with.
Oh, wait. Hold on.
Which one again? Which party?
Wait. Is the pick in?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
My picks are all done.
All right. Let's go, John. We'll start with the Republican Party.
Republican Party, I'm going to go with listed at 6'2", J.D. Vance would be my first pick, the first pick of the draft for the Republican Party.
That's a good one, man.
Strongest contender, I think.
I would agree with you there.
Playing the long game.
I'm with you. He's got to royally screw up to not be the number one pick right now. He's kind of that can't miss prospect, young, got all the makings of what you would want out of the future face of the party. He's right under Donald Trump's wing. So I like where your head's at with that number one pick.
He's proven to be Teflon when it comes to all the epithets they can throw at him. You know, can't call the guy a racist.
Yeah,
right?
That's a good point.
That kind of thing.
Yeah.
So.
Listen, if I had the first pick, I would have gone with JD as well. I'm with you there. All right, Mark, pick number 2 on the Republican side. Is the pick in?
All right, the pick is in.
All right. All right, Mark, who's number 2 on the draft board?
I wanted to go with somebody who is maybe a little bit younger, like in their 40s.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody from middle America, somebody that can run a family, run a country. I'm going with a female who has the chops to do it. I'm going to say Sarah Huckabee Sanders.
On my board, too.
Damn. Oh, my God. Wait, no. Did
I take her out of your queue?
You took her. That was
That's
my
how
pick.
this works.
That was my pick.
You're going to trade back now.
Oh, man. Oh, gosh. This is like when the Saints thought they had Mahomes at 10, and then the Chiefs trade up and take him at 9.
Mm-hmm.
That was my pick, Mark.
Well, I'm glad I had the second
her on the
pick.
board, too, my third pick.
Oh, man. I thought I was going to be sneaky with that Sarah Huckabee Sanders pick.
Nice. I got a sneakier one. That was my number 2.
Wow. Oh, no. Now I got a filibuster to figure out who I'm going to draft. I figured JD was going to be taken. I didn't know who number 2 was going to be, but I felt really confident in Sarah Huckabee Sanders being available at number 3 in this draft. Wow.
I can understand that.
That's a great pick, Mark. That's a great pick, buddy.
Thank you.
I was thinking, because I had the same thought process. Young, female, in Trump's orbit, but also like outside of his orbit, where she's really done her own thing. Governor of a state. I love a governor becoming the next president. I think that's a good kind of, launching pad. I hate the idea of people in Congress now because they don't do anything.
Right.
So, man, you're killing me, Mark. That was good. I hope the Chiefs listen to you because you're nailing it on the NFL draft picks as well. Gosh, where do I go from here? We didn't talk about this beforehand. So now I'm sitting there and I'm saying to myself, what direction do I go? But you know what? I'll give you one at number 3, okay? There will be a battle inside of Trump world for the nomination. We all know that, right? And I think the battle could come down to two different factions of the party. JD, and then on the other side will be Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State. So my pick is in. And it is current Secretary of State who used to be dubbed Little Marco and then worked his way back into the fold. So Marco is like the five-star prospect who then struggles, has to hit the transfer portal, and then kind of has this reinvigoration of himself and gets him back into the top 5 of the NFL draft. So I'm going Marco Rubio. He is lining himself up to be aligned with Trump world. I still think he will have differences with Trump world. And I'm not saying that means he's going to win. I just think with the 3rd overall pick, with JD off the board and now Sarah Huckabee Sanders off the board, who I thought I was a lock for at number 3, I will go with Marco Rubio.
Marco was my male pick for number 2.
Oh.
So
I had him under consideration, but didn't make my list.
Who's
Mine's
on
an
that
outside
list?
one if we want to do that, a project here for the future, since we were talking about 20 years down the road. I just like the presence that Caroline Leavitt projects right now and may pick up quite a few fans. I don't know what her aspirations are, but she's going to win a lot of fans, and that's worth something.
That's like in the NBA when you draft a no-name from Eastern Europe who's got huge upside, right? And he's like 17 years old. So that she's run for Congress in New Hampshire, came up short. But, yeah, I mean, she's been kicking butt. I agree with that. That's an interesting wild card there, John. All right, so now we go to the Democratic side of the aisle. And we will give you the face of the party for 2028 and beyond. And we will go in the same draft order. John, is the pick in?
My pick is in.
All right.
Adding height to my team, to the 6'2" J.D. Vance, I'm going to go with the reportedly but disputed 6'3" Gavin Newsom, California governor.
All right. He's going with the Joker himself. Okay.
I think he made the earliest move to the middle with his podcasts. Who do you have? He's had
Charlie
a few
Kirk.
people. Yeah, different people, Republicans specifically, not just like Bill Maher.
Yeah.
So I think he made the first move. I think he's got that Wall Street image thing. I think he'll probably present himself as a little more intelligent than some of the other people on the list.
Yeah. I'm
would
with
be
you
in
there. Okay. That's a good number 1 pick. It's probably a safe pick. Governor of the biggest state in the country. He's moving to the middle. And he's doing that, obviously, to run for president in 2028. There's no doubt about it. All right, with the second pick on the Democrat side of the aisle, is your pick in there, Mark?
I've been waffling back and forth between two guys.
He's on the phone.
Two men, which is probably not the right choice, but all right, the pick is in.
All right. Who's the pick there at number 2, buddy?
All right, I was looking at this specific mayor, but I couldn't pick this mayor because he's a white mayor. So I'm going to go with the guy from middle of America, a guy you've talked to on this show recently as this morning.
No.
Mayor Quinton Lucas, number 2.
No, you killed your credibility, Mark. You
Oh,
killed
come
it.
on.
Although I go ahead.
He's a young guy. Not a lot of people know him right now. Maybe he'll pick up. I mean, obviously he's out there with the Chiefs parades and stuff like that. But with the World Cup coming, maybe he'll get a little bit more national exposure there. So he's kind of the wild card, the guy that he doesn't have that much pedigree right now, but he's got some high upside.
Well, I agree with all of what you're saying there. I do. And as somebody texted me this morning after our conversation with Mayor Lucas, which is every Thursday at 7:30, someone who's worked in politics in the region, who has won campaigns in the region, texted me and said, Lucas is young, pithy, and has a sharp sense of humor. If he wasn't a mid-city mayor, the Dems will be looking hard at him. And I agree with that. And I've often said, you might as well run for president. He's got no future politically in Missouri just because of the makeup of the state. If Mayor Pete can pull it off, I mean, Quinton Lucas is a much better version of Mayor Pete out of a much bigger city. Why not? I mean, they're looking. They got no bench. So I see what you went for there, Mark. I still think it's a stretch of a pick at number 2. But if you nail it, you look like a genius. It's one of those picks.
That's true. I had him as number 3 on my list, actually, myself.
Okay.
He's getting a lot of earned media. He's hitting the shows when we say his profile's low. It's certainly not as big as some of the loudmouths out there, like Bernie and his girlfriend, Ayo. But he's gaining momentum. He's always good. I think when you see him, you remember, you say, man, what's that guy in Kansas City? As for the city's profile, pretty high up on the dangerous list. So if any progress is made in crime, can launch him right up the list.
That's true. That's a very good point. And listen, I I see what you went for there. It's not impossible. And I've long said the guy should just run for president because they don't have a face. They don't have a bench. It doesn't exist. So if you've got the willingness, why not do it? He is very good on TV. And listen, he comes on this show every week. And as much as I think that the mayor likes talking to us and this audience, he also knows it's good for him politically right now, but also in his future. And clearly, that is part of the vision that he has. So it's a bit of a stretch at 2, Mark, but if you nail it, you look like a genius, okay? That's how it goes.
He certainly was on the show prior to him being mayor as well. So
That's true.
He certainly valued that or understood the value of it for sure.
No doubt about it. All right, so I've got the third pick, and here we go.
What you got?
I am very surprised that these two individuals are on the board. So on the Republican side, I thought I was a lock for Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Didn't work out that way. I figured somebody would take AOC. Nobody did. I'm not taking AOC. I also thought somebody might take Josh Shapiro, and nobody did that. So I will roll with Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro. Of course, he's been in the news lately because an arsonist struck the governor's mansion. He is the governor of a swing state that has leaned more blue outside of voting for Trump in 2016 and then again in 2024. The Democrats need to solidify that blue wall. These states are critically important to them winning presidential elections. And Shapiro has long been a moderate Democrat. Some call him the Jewish Barack Obama. I won't dub him that here, but, you know, it's like the NFL draft picks. Everyone's got their own nickname. So if he's the Jewish Obama, he'll probably run with that. And he clearly has his eyes set on national prominence and running for president. So if you guys are going to leave him out there for me, I think it's a safe, smart pick, and I will go with Josh Shapiro on my draft board.
I had him as number 2 on mine. I was fortunate to get to have the first pick, so I didn't really have to work today.
Yeah.
You guys earned your money on this one.
Well, I was going to go Rahm Emanuel, the former Chicago mayor who was also Obama's chief of staff and an aide to President Clinton. I thought I was going to have to go Rahm Emanuel. I thought some of the big names would be off the board, but you know what? You guys surprised me with Newsom and then Quinton Lucas there by Mark.
Yeah, I couldn't go AOC. I know she wants it, but I just don't think she can be it.
I'm with you guys there. I just figured somebody would take her. So good job. Now, text line is blowing up. Some people are saying, no one picked DeSantis. Listen, DeSantis had his moment, and I liked DeSantis a lot. But in politics, you get a window. You have a moment. And if you can't capitalize on it, you're done. And the problem for DeSantis, he did a great job and has done a great job in Florida. But he stunk on the campaign trail.
Now is not the time to be a New England Patriots fan.
Yeah.
The Chiefs have already replaced him. Their time was then.
Yeah, it's just DeSantis had a moment and he blew it. And you don't usually come back from that moment. I mean, you know, a couple of guys have done it. Nixon and Bob Dole even did it to some degree when they try again. But first off, Trump world is not big on DeSantis, so that's going to hurt him. And DeSantis does not have the charisma to overcome any of this.
Agreed.
And that's his problem. So I as much as I like Ron DeSantis, I can't put him on that list. I couldn't draft him there. Well, that was well done. I didn't know what direction we were going to go with that, but excellent work there, fellas. Nice work. Call it a day. You guys earned the paycheck. 913-408-7957, 848 on a Thursday morning on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM. We're always streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. Now, Mark mentioned Kansas City. There was a ranking that came out that is not good for Kansas City. What was it? We'll tell you next. All right, you're sitting there right now and you're all hyped up for the draft. But hey, you know what's around the corner, right? Don't say I didn't warn you. It's Mother's Day. And right now through Sunday, Diamonds Direct is taking 20% off during April's spring sale. So head on over today before the draft gets underway, or just do it tomorrow at some point. Get over there and enjoy the white glove service with Angie and her team at Diamonds Direct. And I promise you, you're not going to walk in there and feel like someone's trying to screw you or rip you off. That's not what they do, and that's why I enjoy the Diamonds Direct experience, so much more than any other jewelry store I've been in. Go make it happen right now. 20% off during April's spring sale only at Diamonds Direct. They make it easy. They'll treat you like the total pro, and they'll actually allow you to understand what you're buying. Because for most guys, let's be honest, we have no idea what we're looking at. So if you need that Mother's Day gift, the graduation gift, finally time for that engagement, take advantage right now. 20% off at Diamonds Direct now through Sunday. Start shopping at diamondsdirect.com or check them out at 119th and Row.
You're listening to Mundo in the Morning on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM.
Well, Mark picking Quinton Lucas at number 2 in his hypothetical Democrat future NFL draft picks. This is like missing the big injury that the star pick has right before the draft. You missed out on like a bum knee or something like that, Mark, because this might be hampering your pick there at number 2. U.S. News and World Report rating Kansas City, sadly, as one of the most dangerous places in the United States in 2024 and 2025. ranking at number 8 in the country. And there were 3 Missouri cities in the top 15. St. Louis at 2 and Springfield at 14. Of course, this is based on a per capita number, not on just raw numbers. But Kansas City at 8 and then 3 Missouri cities in the top 15. Certainly not a good look. So if you had the information, Mark, are you sticking with your pick at number 2? Or if I give you a do-over, you got to change it?
I'd probably take Josh Shapiro.
Oh, yeah,
I'd take your guy.
Oh, you take my guy. Okay,
but
fine.
I'll stick with Lucas.
All right.
He's got 20 years in our future, face of the party.
Hey, that's the right answer. You got to stick with your pick there, buddy. All right? You got to stick to it. You can't be a GM who's already backing off a pick 5 minutes after you draft him. That's a bad look. Can't do that.
Well, and also, the local crowd knows a little bit more than the national crowd. So we've got an article here where we're making a little bit of progress here with some of the violence in town. So that would be a plus for
That's
him.
true. That's true. Although I would just say, too, in general, Democrats rarely let policies get in the way of their votes.
I was going to say what we're touting as a strength is not necessarily what the party touts as a strength.
Well, true. That's a great point as well. Now, we are down, of course, in Kansas City. We saw a 20% decrease in homicides from 23, where we set a record at 182 homicides, down to 144, the lowest number for Kansas City since 2019. So the trend is a good one. So far this year, we're at 43, which is below the 4-year average leading up to this year. What we've seen a big drop in, and the mayor noted this on social media yesterday, the non-fatal shootings year to date are down 50%. So this is interesting because last year, the homicides were down 20% and the non-fatal shootings were up. So what I interpreted that as is basically the criminals needed to get glasses. They needed to get their eyes checked. This year, we're seeing basically the homicide numbers staying the same, but the non-fatal shootings are down tremendously. That's a good sign. If you can drive down the non-fatal shootings, you will eventually have less homicides. It just means people are pulling out their weapons less frequently and settling conflict with guns. That will achieve what you ultimately want to achieve, which is fewer homicides on the streets of Kansas City, Missouri. But then you still have the underlying issue of just rampant property crime against homeowners and then also businesses. So the homicides, obviously, you want to come down because you want to save people's lives. But more people in Kansas City are going to be dealing with potential property crime issues that will impact economic growth in this town as much as anything else and desirability for home ownership as well. So that has got to be nipped in the bud as well. And the mayor has, he's got a year and a half, 2 years to really work on that. But just know, too, I guarantee you that by this fall, if not early next year, you're going to have people lining up and announcing they're running for mayor to replace Quinton Lucas. That's not all that far off, which is crazy to think about, but it's true. Coming up next, the infertility crisis in this country is real. And there is some new data on what may be the driver of it. We'll share it with you and get your calls in the 9 o'clock hour on that next. You may have seen the headline that the administration is considering $5,000 one-time checks to women for having babies. And Trump was quoted in the Oval Office a couple of days ago of saying that he supports the idea. Now, it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean that that legislation is passing. He just said, yeah, sounds good to me. Kind of just classic Trump. Yeah, sounds good. Well, as I said yesterday, that's an awful idea. If someone is on the fence about having a child and the thing that tips you over the edge is a $5,000 one-time check, I promise you, you will be a terrible parent. And you will be doing it for all the wrong reasons. So that is not the way to solve a crisis that is real. And it absolutely is real. There's no doubt about it. And this has been something that Trump and J.D. Vance in particular have been talking about since they were on the campaign trail back in the fall. How do we encourage the family unit to be the center of America once again? Because we've lost it. And with that, we've lost a lot of our culture. We've lost a lot of the values that make America great. And it's really hurting this country. So the New York Times had this big piece that they dropped last night, headlined, White House Assesses Ways to Persuade Women to Have More Children. And, you know, they talked about the $5,000 idea. One proposal shared with AIDS would reserve 30% of scholarships for the Fulbright program, which is a prestigious government-backed international fellowship for applicants who are married or have children. But, like, none of this stuff solves the actual problem. And it is a problem. Here are the numbers. In 2023, the fertility rate fell to 1.62 births per woman, well below the 2.1 replacement rate needed to maintain our population. The last time we were at 2.1 was in 2007. So we are pushing 20 years since we've had the replacement rate that we need of births to just keep the population going. So we are facing a future of shrinking families and communities. We are seeing now economic and cultural stagnation and, frankly, national decline. That's the end result in all this. So what has to happen? Well, the White House is looking at this from, I think, the wrong angle. It is not just about, hey, how do we go out there and entice people to have babies? The question needs to be, when you look at the data, how do we entice people to build families? How do you start that process? You have to get married. That's where it begins. That's the foundation for everything. And what you're seeing right now is a marriage rate in this country that has dropped by 60% since 1970. That's right. In 1965, I'm looking at the data here. In 1965, 5 and 6 adults between the ages of 18 and 34 were or had been married. Since 1970, the marriage rate has fallen by 60%. Right now, approximately 1/3 of Gen Z is on track to never marry, with many preferring to remain in unstable, cohabiting arrangements. You see a lot of that. Just kind of moving in with someone and we're going to kind of be roommates and, you know, there's no stability there. There's no commitment there. You see it all the time. I mean, I'm just barely out of that age bracket mentioned there, and I see it on a regular basis. It's terrible. So the question is, how do you reward marriage? Because oftentimes a family formation will come out of that. You don't want to encourage just giving birth in isolation. That doesn't accomplish anything. In fact, that will only set America back further.
And yet that's what we do when it comes to unwed mothers right now. If there's the man at home, then sorry, no money.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, there's two parts to this problem for sure.
That's how we got into this mess, right, in part.
And the other part is we're talking about a birth rate and not and people not being born or lack of births. Also, though, we can put Planned Parenthood statistics in there to also further exacerbate the issue.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
but then that doubles back to what you just said about being married. You know, if you can get money and not be married and have a kid, then what the heck?
Yeah. So the Heritage Foundation is about to drop something here in the next couple of weeks on how to boost marriage and, as a result, birth rates. Emma Waters with the Heritage Foundation writes here, the Heritage Foundation has been researching the question for over 2 years on how to increase marriage rates and is preparing to release a report in the coming weeks on how it believes the administration and Congress should counter declining birth rates and marriage rates. So that is something that I am going to be watching very closely, and I think that we all should be watching closely, because that is going to be the thing that then spurs potentially the birth rate and ultimately the family unit. That's what it's about here in large part. The newest and boldest idea, according to one plan, is a policy that offers tax credits to married couples with children, in which families receive more money back from the government for each additional child that they have. So there's a lot of parts to this plan: financial incentives for childbearing, marriage, pro-marriage preferences, and government programs. But you also have the other issue, the infertility crisis. And it is real, man. As someone who is obviously of that age and knows a lot of people who are wanting kids or trying to have kids, here are the numbers. As many as 1 in 7 American couples are struggling with infertility. So everything is stacked against young people right now when it comes to having babies. I am blessed that it hasn't been a problem for us with 3 beautiful young daughters, 6 and under. Mark, if there ever was a problem, well, he found out a year and a half ago. Everything's going just great. Oops, with little Isley. But right now, 1 in 7 American couples are struggling with infertility. And that number has been climbing for years. It is not a niche issue. It is a public health crisis. I can't tell you how many people I know that are trying IVF, going through it, struggling with it, putting together a plan. It is crazy. And the problem, too, is that we don't really know why. 15 to 30% of individuals, per the Heritage Foundation, people dealing with infertility receive a diagnosis of unexplained infertility. How do you fix that? You fund it. It's not being funded right now. And you know me, I'm not about like funding things the government shouldn't be funding. But just like we talk about the FDA, HHS, how to make sure our kids are healthy, get down childhood obesity, like if there's things that we should be investing in, you would think the future of our country and the health of our country would be top of the list. And this is just about getting some answers.
Yeah, I think that's the key thing here. Everybody gets all busy defending some area, and you say, hey, maybe vaccine. No, it's not that. Oh,
Yeah.
No, be open to everything.
Be open to all of
It isn't
it.
any one thing. You're correct. But we have to be open to all of the things it could be.
It's got to be just a holistic approach as to why this is happening. I know everyone's going to have their opinion on why, but the reality is we don't know why. It does not get funded at the rate that it should be funded. And that's a major problem right now. We spend more on researching hair loss than we do the infertility issue. And, as someone who's happily using Rogaine and Propecia, I'll take it. But listen, we got to fund this other stuff too. We got to get some answers here, because it is just an epidemic in a way that people are not talking about. And it's still kind of like taboo to talk about this. But a lot of couples are dealing with it. So marriage rate down 60%, right? Cost of living is up. People wondering if they can have kids, even those who are married, who want to consider this. Then they start the process and they're like, we can't get pregnant. What do we do? Everything is stacked against building a family right now for a multitude of reasons. And the Trump administration, I think, you got really smart people who care about the issue. They've got to acknowledge this. It's not going to be a one-time check of $5,000. I don't care what the headlines are. I don't care if Trump thinks it's good politics to do this. It's not going to solve the crisis. It's going to do nothing to fix the issue. It might be a sexy headline. It might score a couple of political points, but it does nothing, absolutely nothing at its core to fix the problem. 913-408-7957 is how you join us here on KCMO Talk Radio. Squeeze in Ashley. Go ahead. You're in the Northland, Ashley. Good morning.
Hey, I've got 3 stepchildren that all claim to be married. None of them are. The mother of the 2 stepdaughters, she is 53 years old, claims to be married, is not married, has never been married, refuses to get married because it will mess up her Social Security benefits. That is a problem. We need to be rewarding couples like me who are married. So many people out there now want to be married but don't want the commitment and the work that comes with being married. Marriage is a commitment. It is an effort that you have to put out every single day. I see kids out there getting married and wanting to spend $100,000 on the wedding. It's not about a wedding. I got married in a trailer park 12 years ago. I have a strong marriage. I have a good marriage. It's not about the wedding. It's about the marriage. It's about making a commitment to somebody that you want to spend your life with.
Yep.
It is not about this willy-nilly, oh, I'm going to live with somebody, I'm going to make a baby, and then we're going to co-parent. No, that's not what it's about. It's about raising happy, healthy, productive children, and you cannot do that without showing them what a partnership is
There you
with
go.
your partner in your life.
There you go, Ashley. I love it. Preach, sister. Thank you very much. Well done. That's exactly right. And you see that, we're going to be co-parents. No, you're not. You're not. That's instability in the home that will fail the kids and fail the family.
Not a timeshare.
Yeah. It's not. It's not. And it's not a timeshare that's worth your money, I promise.
I'm not worth your Red Lobster money?
No, it's not worth your Red Lobster money. 913-408-7957. So I'm asking you, how do you solve it? The phones are open. I'm convinced, and the data would show it's really a crisis of marriage, and that's part of what Ashley alluded to here. When you're married, you have skin in the game. All right? You're one. You're fighting together. You can't duplicate that in a co-parenting setting. It's impossible to do it. 913-408-7957. Pete Mundo on a Thursday morning on KCMO Talk Radio.
On Thursday's Guy Benson Show, a heck of a lineup. The architect, Karl Rove, with political analysis. Charlie Gasparino joins us on the latest market gyrations, coming up at 2 o'clock on KCMO.
On the text line, Pete, 2 small points on the marriage crisis, the infertility crisis, and the issues that the country faces culturally. This has been a big topic this week. New York Times had a huge piece yesterday, headlined, White House assesses ways to persuade women to have more children. They talk about baby bonuses and different things like that. The baby bonus is not the answer at all. But this was on the text line, and you can't, I don't know how you quantify this, but I can tell you right now it is a real problem. Pete, over the last 20 years, we've been told that men are bad, evil, I don't need men, leave us alone. So guys said, okay, and they've left the scene. As a 30, soon to be 37-year-old, I've been out of the game for, thank goodness, 18 years. I met Kate when I was 19 at Villanova. Thank goodness, rest is history. But I'm telling you, it is so true for men that I know who have been in the dating world over the last 10 years. It is a tough putt for some of the reasons that texter alluded to, right? And on top of that, we won't have to go here now, but something else, and we saw this in the last election. Young men are skewing way to the right. I mean, not way to the right, like far right, but I mean, they are just moving to the right in a way that they weren't 15 years ago. And young women, on the other hand, are moving to the left. That makes for a very difficult situation. I do have a friend, and she's about to be single again at about 33. And she's obviously terrified of this. Good friend, had a marriage that fell apart, no kids yet, so that's good. But one thing I did say when I was thinking about her future, she's super conservative, loves Trump. I said, you're actually going to have an easier time than you think. Because right now, young men are out there, they're to the right, and frankly, the dating pool on the other side is mostly on the left. And it makes it very difficult for them. If you're a conservative woman in the dating world right now, you're in a very good spot. Rick's in Leavenworth on KCMO. Go ahead, Rick. What's up, man?
Yeah, so this is the root problem with America right now, and I think you hit it right on the head. So it started with Lyndon B. Johnson with the war on poverty, and the family's been destroyed since then. You had the LGBT movement that said, hey, any relationship is good. The social glorification of single parents, and like your last caller just said, it kind of tosses the husband or the male to the sideline, So it's going to be a tough road. We have to bring back the goodness of marriage and family as a core social principle of America, because the Democrats, and I really think most of the people on the left, wanted to destroy that family. Because they want.
Well, it's good for them. It's good for their political power. Let's be honest. The more that people are unmarried, the more that people are not having children, the more that they're just living single, basically atheistic lives. They will replace family, and they will replace a spouse, and they will replace children, and they will replace faith with what? With government. That's what they will do.
And that's what we have to overcome. And when you say, hey, I'm going to be a stay-at-home, so I'm 65. So my wife, and I spent time in the Army, my wife, we talked about it. She was a stay-at-home mom because the children need their mother very early on. And that was great when I was growing up, your age or whatever, but it's frowned upon now. And I think that is a great, having the wife in the home, it does all sorts of things. First of all,
well, here's what I would say. There's no doubt, and this was referenced, and I'm out of time here, Rick, but it's a good call. It was brought up by Dr. Christine White last week. She's a pediatrician in the area. She was our Feature Friday guest, and she talked about that very thing. And obviously, she's someone who was in the workforce and has been in the workforce since her kids were little. She referenced having some regrets, and that's not to say that it's the right thing for everybody, right? Many households right now, with the cost of living increases, they need both parents to work. They just do. It's how do you balance it? Can you stagger schedules? Can you get a sense of normalcy at home as much as possible? It's not possible for everybody, but definitely part of the equation. Is there a way to have one parent? In many cases now, it doesn't have to be the wife. I know stay-at-home dads in my world. But can you have somebody who is there for the child as much as possible? That's the question. And some people will say, I can't do that in today's America. It's too expensive. And I understand it. Trust me, I see it all the time. And I have friends dealing with these conversations in their own homes all the time as well. It's not easy. But here's the thing, Rick. We're not even there yet, right? We're not even to the point where we can have that conversation. Does somebody stay home? If we can have that conversation for American culture, we'll be much better off. We can't even get people to get married to build a family. So forget the conversation on whether or not a parent can stay at home and raise the kids and be there for the kids. We got to get there first, man. So this all ties back to how do you bring back marriage as a tenet of the family, because that will spur the baby boom. And then you do have to eventually have an honest conversation about infertility in this country, which is impacting 1 in 7 couples and is still very taboo to talk about, and it shouldn't be. That could be right under RFK's bucket. As busy as the guy is, I think that should be investigated as well, just like the autism deal. News coming up in 1 minute, and our caller of the day is coming up next on KCMO Talk Radio.
You're gonna beat me? At golf? Oh, you're on. You're in big trouble, though, pal. I eat pieces of shit like you for breakfast.
You eat pieces of shit for breakfast?
No.
Dave Ramsey here, and you're listening to Pete Mundo on KCMO Talk Radio, now airing on FM at 95.7.
It was great news in the last couple of days when RFK Jr., Marty McCarry, head of the HHS and FDA, announced that they are going to be working to get food dyes out of our cereals, our candies, everything else. It's not going to create a panacea for health in this country, but it is definitely a step in the right direction. Because these food dyes are triggering to the brain in many kids. Childhood obesity is at record highs. And Europe and Canada and many other places around the world don't have these food dyes. And they don't have the problems that we have in this country. Marty McCarry was on yesterday with CNN and laid it all out.
Why are these petroleum-based dyes in our food and in our medication in the first place?
Well, good question, Dana. I don't think we appreciated the potential risks to human health and child health when they were first introduced. Yellow dye number 5, for example, was noted to be a bright, vibrant yellow color as the byproduct of coal tar in the coal ash. And then people decided to put it in fabric, and then they thought, well, we can put it in food. The studies have caught up with the introduction of these petroleum-based chemical food dyes, and the data doesn't look good. Studies have shown an association with ADHD. It also makes ultra-processed food look more attractive for young kids, messing with their minds where they feel full and they want more of the food. And we've got an epidemic of childhood chronic diseases, so we are erring on the safe side and moving to remove these from the U.S. food supply.
All right. Marty McCarry knocking it out of the park on CNN yesterday. And that led to our caller of the day on KCMO.
Hello? It's the Mundo in the Morning Caller of the Day. On KCMO Talk Radio, now on FM at 95.7.
913-408-7957 on a Thursday morning. Let's go to Randy. He's on KCMO. Good morning, Randy. Go ahead, buddy.
Hey, I think Dana Bash had a Happy Gilmore moment, and to do with food, this comes out pretty funny because he tells her we're trying to make people happy, and she goes, "We eat pieces of crap like Trump for breakfast," and he's like, "We eat crap? You eat crap for breakfast? Well, that's our problem."
Well done there, Randy.
You're gonna beat me? At golf? Oh, you're on. You're in big trouble, though, pal. I eat pieces of shit like you for breakfast.
You eat pieces of shit for breakfast?
No.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Well done, Randy. in Napoleon. A little Happy Gilmore for you there on a Thursday, John.
Nice,
That's
yeah.
outstanding work. Nice job there, Randy. Good reference. That was like, 7 o'clock, so Randy was sharp this morning.
He's on it.
He was on it, man. That's outstanding work. So this is part of, obviously, the conversation that needs to be had in this country about our health and the fact that we are getting unhealthier by the day. And you know what? If we start with this, it is a step in the right direction. It is apolitical, and it is a no-brainer. Now, back here in Jackson County, things that should be a no-brainer. Getting Frank White out of office, like ASAP. So yesterday, 60,000 signatures were submitted to get Frank White out as Jackson County executive. It will take a couple of weeks for these signatures to be confirmed, counted, and verified. That's the estimates from the Jackson County Election Board. And with that, now, when does the recall vote potentially happen? Well, it would probably be if they can get these signatures all squared away, and they need, 42,000, give or take is the number, 43,000. If they can get to that 43,000 number, and they got a lot of wiggle room submitting 60,000 signatures, you could have something on the ballot as soon as this summer. I believe they've got 60 days after the recall signatures are confirmed to get something on the ballot. There will be a cost associated with that, obviously, to run a special election. But trust me, most people on the county legislature are ready for that to happen. Not only because of the incompetency of Frank White, but also because, let's be honest, there's a lot of people on that legislature that want to run. Manny Abarca is on that list. Manny Abarca is the classic example of a broken clock being right twice a day. And that's what he is. He's wrong in everything, but he's right on Frank White. And the main reason he's right on Frank White is because he wants to be the county executive. That is very evident to anybody who pays attention to local politics. So they both spoke to Channel 9 yesterday, KMBC. Here's Manny Abarca and then our buddy Sean Smith as well.
It is time to do more than just complain and yell and scream legislatively. I think that's why now we're calling in the Attorney General to come in and launch a formal investigation.
And instead, he's coaching the Monarchs at least some of his time, and we just don't know his whereabouts. When you can ask week after week to his chief of staff, where is the county executive? And the answer is he doesn't know. His chief of staff doesn't know where Frank is. That's a problem.
Yeah, I mean, they might be able to find him down the first baseline at Monarch Stadium, but outside of that, I mean, no one really knows where he is. So you're in this impossible situation where you're trying to run a county, and the guy in charge of the county, the elected official in charge of the county, is nowhere to be found, and his own chief of staff says he doesn't know where he is. Say what you want about Quinton Lucas. Some of you may prefer that he's not around or he didn't show up to city council meetings, but at least he's like physically present and there. Frank is not. And I'm glad that Sean Smith is taking my Monarchs line. I'm happy to give it to him, and anybody else who wants to use it, please take it. He's coaching the Monarchs. They are opening up the season here coming up in a couple of weeks. So if there was ever a time where Frank was going to show up to the city or the county meetings, you'd think it would be now, right? Is there preseason ball for the Monarchs? Do they do anything like that?
A couple of games here in the week right before.
Oh, you're right. I see that.
Yeah.
May 5th and 6th, they will have exhibition games against the Winnipeg Gold Eyes. Big showdown there. Then they open up the season.
That's unique. I mean, that's just a team they compete against regularly. So
yeah.
Not out of the league or anything.
They've got a Friday night season opener. Oh, it's on Chloe's birthday, my middle daughter's birthday. That is at 6:35, first pitch against the Lincoln Salt Dogs.
Got the Salt Dogs coming in for 3.
Oh, boy. Now, Frank is off on Monday the 7th as part of a 6-game homestand to open up the season. So he could go to that meeting on Monday, or no, that's in July. It would be Monday, May 12th. He could go to the meeting. But, hey, when you're the first base coach, there's a lot of responsibility that comes with that. You got to practice your tush tapping and the whole thing. That's part of the job. So I would doubt that we would see him at a meeting on Monday, May the 12th. But he should be there. And this is so far beyond Frank's a Democrat, I'm a Democrat. This is just government incompetency. And that's why you also had the county legislature announce yesterday they are looking into having Andrew Bailey, the attorney general, try to do something about Frank White. Can he remove Frank White from office? He's done that on the St. Louis side with prosecutors. It's not clear legally he can do something like that when it comes to a county executive. But the case that's being made here is that Frank White has failed to provide required financial information to the legislature. He has allegedly authorized the unlawful disbursement of funds without an approved budget, failing to serve in the role full time, and vetoing a county ordinance that would have capped property tax assessments in line with the guidance from the Missouri State Tax Commission. So that is what they are asking the attorney general to investigate as to whether or not he can remove Frank from office. Someone said to me yesterday, they said, don't you think the Frank White story is sad? And I said, no, it's not sad at all. It is not sad in the least bit. If you are feeling sorry and sad for Frank White, you are misplacing your sadness. There are thousands of residents who did not know in the last couple of years if they could stay in their homes because of the incompetency of the county executive and his handpicked assessor, Gail McCann Beatty, and the incompetency with which they ran that 2023 assessment. If you want to feel sad for people you don't know. Do not feel sad for Frank White. Frank White got into the political arena, okay? He chose this route, and he has chosen and made every decision on his own accord over the last couple of years, and he has shown no remorse for how this county has treated its citizen. There is zero reason to feel sorry or sad for Frank White, who for many Kansas Cityans who did not watch him play baseball because they weren't alive will only know him as a wildly incompetent county executive here in Jackson County.
His obstinance is what's sad.
Yeah.
It's not like, gosh, gee, the guy made a bad decision and was unlucky. It's just willful obstinance.
Yeah, and defiance and everything else.
There you go.
That's what this is. And that's why I cannot shed one single tear. I can't even fake one. My kids can't even fake a tear, and they're good at faking them sometimes. They can't even fake a tear for Frank White if they tried. 913-408-7957. We will wrap up the show before Kevin Keatsman uncanceled on draft day here on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM.
from the nation's heartland. It's Mundo in the Morning on 95.7 FM KCMO Talk Radio.
If you're an NFL fan, you may remember the name Donald Driver. You remember Donald Driver there, Mark? Was he ever on one of your fantasy teams or something like that?
Oh, yeah. Donald Driver, Green Bay Packers.
Yeah.
Solid player.
There you go. Nice work. 7th round pick in 99 out of Alcorn State. And he won a Super Bowl 35 with the Packers against the Pittsburgh Steelers back in 2011. He told Fox News Digital this. He says here that he shares his faith-driven stance on trans athletes in women's sports, telling Fox News Digital, quote, God made you how he made you. At the end of the day, if he made you a male, then you compete in male sports. He made you a female, you compete in female sports. It's very common sense, nothing controversial. It's also a reminder that when people say, hey, I'm boycotting the NFL because of Colin Kaepernick, the NFL is filled with conservative men. Filled. I would venture it is majority conservative men in the NFL. When you factor in not just the players, but the coaches, staff, the whole thing, front office, they may feel like they have to play the woke game once in a while, but one of the many reasons I would not boycott the NFL, despite the fact that, yes, I like it and I cannot live my life through the prism of everything being political, is that the players themselves, while they may not wear their politics on their sleeve, they are men of faith in many cases, and they are conservatives. And the more that come out, former players, current players, doesn't mean they have to show up in MAGA hats to games and stuff like that. But wearing your faith on your sleeve and just having common sense principles when stuff like this comes up will be good for the brand, despite what the agents say and the business managers say from, Fifth Avenue in New York City. It will be good for the sport as a whole. So nice job by Donald Driver there. Now, with that being said, just a quick update. The story in North Kansas City we've talked about the last couple of days where you had a male in the women's locker room at the North Kansas City YMCA. That, of course, is now being investigated by North Kansas City Police, Clay County Prosecutor's Office. The YMCA has launched an internal investigation. Just know this. I was talking to somebody yesterday. Platte County, they've got a couple of YMCAs up there, and they're not happy. Now, this is obviously a Clay County issue, but I know for a fact, in talking to officials up in Platte County yesterday, that they have 2 community centers operated by the YMCA. And right now, they are rent-free up there at these YMCA centers. And I know that you've got officials up there who are going to be looking into basically saying, you change this policy or you will no longer be rent-free in 2 beautiful county-owned facilities. And as I understand it, Platte County can cancel those agreements by paying a $10,000 breakup fee, and they can send it to market. So there are meetings happening today between Platte County officials and leaders at YMCA Greater Kansas City, and they're going to try to make sure that policy is changing. And as one official told me up in Platte County, and I'll read it verbatim, the quote, I'm willing to die on this hill. So you've got good officials up there in Platte County, and they are not going to take any nonsense and BS on this stuff. Now, Johnson County, Kansas, not so much. They'll probably kick in some more subsidies to the YMCA. The more I'm trying to use an appropriate word. The more Johnsons are rolling around Johnson County women's locker rooms in the YMCA, I don't know. That
Howard
should be.
Johnson's right about Willard Johnson being right.
That should work for the point I'm trying to make. Yeah, I mean, the leadership in Johnson County, they may give you some more tax subsidies if you end up with more dudes in women's locker rooms down here. But at least in Platte County, you've got good people in charge. So credit to you up there. We'll see how this story plays out. It's not public yet. I'm just sharing it with you here first on KCMO.
This YMCA is not like the song, you know? Yeah.
Ain't that the truth, man? Ain't that the truth? And I'll end it with this on a similar note. Obviously, Shannon Sharp finds himself in a world of hurt right now. We got to do it. I mean, the former Bronco, we got to rip on here.
Well, I admire him for taking it head on, if you will. Literally confronting it.
Well done.
I mean, I think he's in a position maybe of all these athletes to where he's just going to go ahead and own it.
Yeah, well, no one's denying that he had a relationship with a then 19-year-old OnlyFans star. But now her attorney is releasing audio of Shannon Sharp threatening to choke her out. It is believed that ESPN is going to be done with Shannon Sharp, and this comes as he's looking for a $100 million podcast deal. Now, the question becomes, what do they do? He's been a contributor to ESPN for a couple of years now, right? So he's been part of that family. He's trying to re-up and then also get himself a $100 million podcast deal. It's not clear how this is going to play out. But Shannon Sharp apparently, per reports, offered $10 million to this person to basically sweep this thing under the rug. She now wants $50 million in a lawsuit. There's somewhat of a he said, she said here when it comes to what may have happened regarding sexual assault or sexual abuse. But no matter what, Shannon Sharp put himself in a position where he was with a woman, while it's not illegal, who is younger than his kids. Nothing good is going to come out of that, okay? And the very least that ESPN should do is look at this and say, maybe we shouldn't be around guys like Shannon Sharp, especially when they kick out people like Sage Steele because she's a conservative. Don't forget that. She tweeted about it, posted on X about it yesterday. There's a long list of examples where ESPN and Disney considers having conservative viewpoints as a much greater offense than questionable character. That was Sage Steele, and it was very well said. Good riddance, Shannon. Go Chiefs tonight. We'll see who they draft. We'll talk to you tomorrow morning.